Good afternoon, everybody. It is 3:05. It's called 3:06 on Super Talk 99.7 on this 30th day of May, a Thursday. Feels like a Wednesday, but it's only Thursday. Glad you're with us as you are trying to wrap up your Thursday and get home. We will bring you a lot of news and information. And, of course, we're watching very closely the events in New York City, where the jury has been deliberating the trial of the charges against Donald Trump now for 11 hours and 10 minutes, 53 seconds. I mean, it's the clocks are running. We don't know when the verdict is going to come, but I can assure you that if it comes during this show, we will stop everything and pay close attention to that. I want to start with a discussion of where we are today. As you know, yesterday the jury sent out a bunch of notes and they had questions of the judge, and they were sent home at about, I think about 4:30 their time, about 3:30 our time. And that could happen again today if they are not close to a verdict. So it seems to me that's probably going to have another day of deliberations. But the questions were interesting. Here's what they wanted to know. This is according to the Wall Street Journal. The panel spent Thursday morning in the courtroom listening to a reading of some of the testimony that tabloid publisher David Pecker and former Trump fixer Michael Cohen gave during the trial. The jury made the request for a readout of the testimony toward the end of its first day of deliberation. Some of the Pecker testimony included his account of what prosecutors say was a critical meeting in August of 2015, where Pecker, Trump, and Cohen agreed to have the National Enquirer run hit pieces on Trump's opponents and buy damaging stories about him. Cohen, the prosecutor's star witness, also testified about the 2015 meeting. Trump is charged, as you know, with 34 counts of falsifying business records to cover up a $130,000 payment to Stormy Daniels to buy her silence ahead of the 2016 election. At the jury's request, the judge presiding over the trial also reread to the panel on Thursday some of the legal instructions he had previously given. Now, they're very complex and convoluted. There's some 60 pages of these arguments, I think 56 pages to be exact, of the instructions that were given to the jurors, but the jurors were not allowed to carry them into the jury room, which many attorneys are scratching their heads saying that's almost always done. When you give instructions to the jury, they're allowed to carry them into the jury room, but that wasn't allowed, and so the judge was asked to reread some of the stuff. The instructions provided guidance to jurors on how to consider the credibility of witnesses, including some whose testimony the defense tried to undermine. Cohen was the only witness to testify that Trump approved the cover-up of the Daniels payment. Trump lawyer Todd Blanche told jurors during closing arguments that Cohen was an MVP of liars who had a vendetta against his former boss. His words cannot be trusted, said Blanche. And then there's the weird instructions. The townhall.com talks about this, and we've talked about it endlessly. The unusual instructions that were given to the jury were not normal. According to legal experts, Merchan's standard for a conviction are abnormal and do not require jurors to reach a unanimous decision on the charges. Further, jurors don't have to determine what crime was committed. Judge Merchan has ruled the jury does not have to agree on what that crime is. The jury could split into three groups of four on which of the three crimes are being concealed, and Merchan would still treat it as a unanimous verdict. That is so bizarre. George Washington University law professor Jonathan Turley writes, the jury's been given little substantive information on these crimes, and Merchan has denied a legal expert who could have shown them that there was no federal election violation. The case should have been dismissed for lack of evidence for a cognizable crime. There's no recognizable crime here. One analyst said the notion that Merchan's jury instructions could somehow fail to specifically instruct jurors about the second substantive in furtherance of crime and its underlying statute includes the requisite means real intent is absolute. Well, I can't say the next word, but I would say guano. You with me on that? Guano? We know what guano is. It's guano insane. And I agree. I agree with that. I do have a little bit of interest. I think this is very interesting. Really, honestly, does it matter when it comes to the 2024 election? If he's convicted, and he could be. I mean, the way that this is laid out, it's entirely possible there will be conviction. There'll be an automatic appeal, don't get me wrong, but it is possible that at the end of the day, Trump leaves this trial as a convicted felon. I don't think that hurts him, and neither do apparently the pollsters. From the Washington Examiner, a new poll released Thursday had some positive news for former President Donald Trump's reelection chances as he awaits a verdict in his New York hush money trial. An NPR PBS NewsHour Marist national poll showed that 67% of registered voters nationally would not be swayed by a guilty verdict against Trump. Now, 15% said it would make them more likely to vote for him. Another 17% said a guilty verdict would make them less likely to vote for Trump. So this is basically a wash. Jurors in the process of deciding whether the former president is guilty or not of 34 counts of falsifying business records related to hush money payments to porn star Stormy Daniels ahead of the 2016 election. Could come at any time now, where, as we say, in day two of the deliberations. Among the Republicans surveyed in the poll, 25% said a guilty verdict would make them more likely to vote for the former president. 10% said it would make them less likely to vote for him. Only 7% of Democrats said a guilty verdict would make them more likely to vote for Trump. 27% said it would make them less likely to vote for Trump. But look at the independents. 15% said a guilty verdict would make them more likely to vote for Trump, and 11% said it would make them less likely. The others said no difference. In contrast, again, 76% of all voters said a not guilty verdict would not affect their votes at all. So, if the Democrats, by throwing all of these cases against Trump, thought that it was going to have a real impact and that, that a guilty verdict here would diminish Trump's chances to become the next president of the United States, they are being disabused of that notion. I mean, as we have told you, and we'll talk about it again when we get to our 2024 segment, but we've told you the numbers aren't changing dramatically, and you can interpret some of these numbers as going up for Trump and down for Biden during the time the trial's underway. It's almost as if, the trial is helping Trump rather than hurting him, and I think, that's that people are looking at this thing and they're coming to the conclusion that it's a trumped up, excuse that bad pun, deal, and that this is weaponization of the legal system. Pretty amazing. The best case scenario, writes the Washington Examiner, is an acquittal for Trump. Some think that that's unlikely. The most realistic path for the defense is a hung jury in which at least one juror dissents. I think that is a possibility. Listen to this. I thought this was interesting. Article 1 of the Constitution sets out 3 requirements in order to become president. You have to be 35 years old. You have to be a natural-born citizen, 14 years a resident within the United States. Heritage Foundation legal scholar Hans von Spakovsky, a friend of this program, told the Washington Examiner that being a convicted felon is not a bar to being president. Trump cited the NPR Marist poll on Thursday morning before heading into the courtroom. He pointed to his lead of 54% to 42% against President Joe Biden among independent voters. And that is really the thing to look at, because where Republicans are likely to be on Trump, and where hardcore Democrats are likely to be. The question is, are those people in the middle who go either way, how are they impacted by this? And it seems really quite evident that the independent voters in America are not going to be largely swayed if there is a conviction in this matter. 54% of independents are now prepared to vote for Trump if the election were held today, against 42% who would vote for Joe Biden. That's pretty amazing. Trump's strongest lead among independent voters, he says. He also says that he's attacking Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Jr. is way, way down, according to a poll report of the trial. He called Kennedy extremely liberal, by the way, extremely radical left. I think you know that. but he seems to be hurting Biden probably more a little bit, and that's probably true. Although there are examples where I think Trump gets hurt, depending on where you are in the country, but most of those polls seem to be within the margin of error. So very interesting that again, the American people seem to be seeing this for what it is. An attempt to destroy the credibility. It's not a law case. It's not a prosecution. It's a personal persecution, a political persecution. It is weaponizing the law in a way that they feel will hurt the former president. It's not working, and they've got to be panicked about that, because I think they were really putting a lot of eggs in this basket. They thought this would be the turning point. If they got a felony conviction, and they don't have one yet, doesn't mean make sure that you know that. The jury is still out. But, I mean, but if they were to get a conviction, they felt like this would really be, the end-all and be-all. And they put a very liberal judge who has had his thumb on the scale of justice ever since he started in there. This will be appealed one way. If there's a conviction, it'll be appealed very quickly. And I believe, and many other legal analysts who are smarter than I am, believe that there really is so much reversible error here. The question is, of course, whether or not the appeals courts can be trusted in the state of New York, or are they also in on the game? That's a real legitimate question, given that the judiciary in the state of New York is notoriously liberal. So I don't know how it's all going to work out, but some people have also suggested that Trump should appeal directly to the Supreme Court. Now, my sense of that is the Supreme Court would not want to take that up, but who knows? If they feel that there's been such egregious behavior at the lower court level, they might just choose to do that, because that's probably where it would end up anyway. If the appeals court affirmed the lower court ruling, it would probably go to the Supreme Court. But again, none of that stops Donald Trump from running for president. The question, I think, is still to be determined here is, okay, if there is a conviction, what will the punishment be? Will Judge Juan Merchan send Donald Trump to jail? Will he put an ankle bracelet on him and make him stay in New York? What kind of things are they likely to do? And you know what? The way it works in New York, you could actually have a verdict. If the verdict came down and there was a conviction, the judge could stop right then and there and put out his punishment. It could happen at the same time the verdict comes down. Now, that's not usually the way it works in a federal court, but this is not a federal court. This is the New York Supreme Court, and this is a high-level state court. And so it's going to be interesting. Why is a state court in the first place prosecuting what is a federal crime? I mean, no federal authority would take it on. There's just so many questions about the way this has been conducted and the way that the trial. And let's also consider the other thing. The other three trials that are pending against Donald Trump are absolutely in shambles right now. I mean, you've seen all of the problems with Fani Willis and her case. The whole January 6th case and the documents case are on hold right now and not likely to begin before the campaign is well underway. And there are rules in the Justice Department about, when you carry out a trial in the middle of a campaign. There generally, it's sort of an unspoken rule that you don't do that, but who knows what will happen with this particular situation. But if Democrats had the belief that what they're doing was going to have a dramatic change, so far Trump has been in this courtroom for 5 weeks now, unable to largely go out and campaign except for a few odd Wednesdays and some Saturday rallies. He's not been able to go out and campaign. And at the end of the day, it doesn't seem to be moving the needle. He's right where he was when this whole thing started, if not been better shape. We told you yesterday about battleground polls that are looking very positive. In fact, even in states like Virginia, which has not been a reliably red state in about 10 years or more, may well, be in the hunt. I mean, Trump is tied in the state of Virginia, according to a Roanoke College poll. So it just doesn't seem to be moving the needle. Not among Republicans, not really among independents, only a few Democrats. So I think it's going to be really interesting to watch, but I don't think it's going to have a tremendous impact, which is probably the right thing, because I think the American people see this for what it is. It is now 20 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock. A question from our friends at Beacon Capital Management. Are your retirement assets structured to minimize taxes? Could be hard to believe, but many hardworking Americans like you could be overpaying on taxes in retirement. You may be taxed on your IRA, your 401k, any other tax-deferred retirement accounts. Beacon Capital Management is here to give you peace of mind. With the threat of massive tax increases just around the corner, your nest egg could be in trouble unless you take advantage of defensive tax saving strategies now. Defend your hard-earned retirement savings by scheduling a free retirement tax reduction analysis today. There is no cost, no pressure, no obligation. If you have saved more than $250,000 for retirement, don't wait any longer. Schedule your free tax reduction analysis from Beacon. Call this number, 615-488-9303. That's 615-488-9303, or visit askbeaconnow.com.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lock boxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
Just under 11 and a half hours as we are in day 2 of jury deliberations in the New York criminal trial of Donald Trump, a fatal crash here in the volunteer state, and the federal government cracking down on 3 Alabama companies. Will tell you why. 3:30 Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Yeah, I'm reading back that the jury's going to be dismissed in about another 5 minutes for the day, so it doesn't look like we're likely to get a verdict today, but we'll be watching that very closely, and we'll be watching to see if Donald Trump has anything to say as he exits the courtroom. So we got a lot of stuff going on today, guys, and I want to bring you up to speed on something that's going to happen after the news at the bottom of the hour. We have been reporting about this a whistleblower who is a former lieutenant with the Office of Professional Accountability at the Metro Nashville Police Department. His name is Garrett Davidson. Now, he has come up with a 60-page complaint that alleges mismanagement at the police department, a whole host of things. The story that has emerged so far is that one of the allegations that's in this complaint has to do with the fact that the allegation is that high-ranking officials within the police department were working with the state legislature to come up with a piece of legislation that ultimately did pass the state legislature that limited the activity of what you call the community oversight boards in the state. Now, that meant that the community oversight board that was in place here in Nashville has been hamstrung in its ability to go forward with investigations. I, quite frankly, am not a big fan of the community oversight board, now called a community review board. And to me, that's not the big news out of this 60 pages. There are many, many serious allegations here that are leveled against, basically the management of the Metro Nashville Police Department. He names names, and he calls it, the way he sees it, as a man who was responsible for doing many of the investigations when there were problems with police officers at the Metro Nashville Police Department. This report has landed in the hands, as I understand it, of the mayor of Internal Affairs, the Office of Professional Accountability, and it's also in the hands of the Community Review Board. As far as I know, I am the only reporter who has gotten a hold of all 60 pages of the complaint, and we will be publishing the entire 61-page document at URFARB.com after we conduct an interview at the bottom of the hour with Garrett Davidson. Now, he's no longer with the police department, but among some of the things that we're going to discuss is what he says is sort of a rather broad way of some broad themes about things like, well, was there what they call rank bias in the police department? In other words, were there things that would, if a charge was leveled against a high-ranking officer, did they get treated one way in the investigation, while the rank-and-file officers, the frontline officers, were treated perhaps more harshly? He will make some he'll have some things to say about whether or not the brass at the police department worked to interfere against some of his investigations. We will ask him about how the department handles sexual harassment cases. He has some concern about that. And then we'll get to the issue of the Covenant Manifesto leaks, because there were several pages from the manifesto that were leaked, and there was an investigation into that. And I think he'll have some interesting things to say about that, and also about the way the current police academy is being operated. All of these things we will discuss in just a few minutes after the news. And I think based on what I have seen in this document, I think that it will be a rather eyebrow-raising interview, and you may want to take a look at the document once it is posted at URFARB.com. That's URFARB.com. So that's coming up here in just a few minutes. You definitely want to hang around for this. Again, his name is Garrett Davidson, former lieutenant with the Office of Professional Accountability, who has leveled a 60-page complaint against the Metro Nashville Police Department. And by the way, we will open up the phone lines for anybody from the police department who wants to respond to this afterwards, and we'd be happy to have Chief Drake on, or any other of his designated spokespeople if they would like to respond to this, because we want to be fair and balanced about it. So stick around. That'll be in about 5 minutes from now. But right now it's time for the news on Super Talk 99.7.
3:30, I'm Mac Maury with your top story. 79 degrees, a mostly sunny day on Music Row. Full weather forecast, traffic report, 5 minutes. Day 2 of jury deliberations underway now in the New York criminal trial of Donald Trump. The panel is back in the jury room after rehearing testimony they'd requested. Aaron Kutersky reports crowds are starting to gather at the park across from the courtside, writing for a verdict.
A guy set himself on fire in this park during the trial, so I don't think they're taking anything lightly. There are demonstrators. Many of them are in favor of the former president. They occasionally hold signs and flags, but there are a number of people there that had nothing to do with any of this. They wanted to just come down and gawk.
And it seems that the jury will be dismissed for the day in the next few minutes. A fatal crash in Tennessee. A crash happened in Wilson County yesterday morning. It ended a mother and a daughter's life. Happened on East Division Street when a Hyundai lost control and crossed the center line, colliding with a cement truck head-on. Brooke Brashear, 38 years old, and her 12-year-old daughter died as a result of that collision. The driver of the cement truck, a 66-year-old man, was injured. And the federal government cracking down on 3 Alabama companies, including an international automaker's manufacturing plant for employing underage children. Dave Packer.
In a filed court complaint, the Department of Labor says an Alabama Hyundai manufacturing plant employed a 13-year-old girl who worked over 50 hours a week on its assembly line over a period of 6 to 7 months, making parts instead of going to middle school. It was one of 3 companies named in the complaint, which asks the court to require the defendants to surrender profits related to the use of oppressive child labor. The action comes as several states are working to relax child labor laws.
And that is the latest news, traffic, and weather next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Matt Murphy for Members Nutrition. I want to tell you about the Members Nutrition difference, and I want to encourage you to go over to the Members Nutrition website. Number one, they believe at Members Nutrition that they can sell vitamins and supplements at a lower cost point, and they're doing it every single day at membersnutrition.com. Number two, they want to make these products right here in the United States of America, not from some overseas company, and they do that every single day. I encourage you to go to membersnutrition.com. You'll get 50% off your purchase price at checkout. You don't have to put in any codes. Just go to membersnutrition.com. Once again, membersnutrition.com.
Let me tell you about the folks over at Restoration Wellness and Med Spa in Lebanon, in Wilson County. They can help you achieve your summer weight loss goals. They're a leader in weight loss management here. And summer is just around the corner. You're going to want to be at the pool. You're going to be one at the beach. You're going to look good in your skimpy summer clothes, right? Well, call the Restoration Wellness team at 615-470-8124 or visit them at their website, restorationwellnessmedspa.com, to book a consultation today. Now, my friends over there, Carly and Jamie, will take really good care of you, just like you're part of the family. You could be part of the 1,000 patients who have already seen life-changing results from the weight loss management program there, including me and Cabana Wife, who's looking pretty skinny these days. Weight loss can increase your energy levels, improve your quality of sleep, and enhance your overall health. And these are customized treatment plans, not just one size fits all. Restoration Wellness considers your unique needs, your lifestyle, your goals. So whether your goal is to lose stubborn body fat or improve your overall health, Restoration Wellness has a solution for you. Learn about the newest technology in weight loss management. Go to their website, restorationwellnessmedspa.com.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lock boxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
It's 38 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. As we were saying a few moments ago, a 61-page complaint has been filed with the police department, the Community Reserve Review Board, and also the Office of the Mayor, as I understand it, has received a copy of this, that levels pretty harsh criticism at the management of the Metro Nashville Police Department and some of the policies there. It is the author of that 60-page report is a guy by the name of Lieutenant Garrett Davidson. He's a former lieutenant at the Office of Professional Accountability there at the Metro Nashville Police Department. He's now doing other things, and he joins us now on the Newsmaker Hotline to talk about this remarkable document and the things that he has alleged. Garrett Davidson, thank you for joining us here on The Drive.
Hey, Brian. Thank you for having me.
All right. First of all, very briefly, for those who may not know, what is the OPA?
So the OPA is the Office of Professional Accountability, and it's the division tasked with investigating allegations of officer misconduct there at the MMPD.
And what was your role there as a lieutenant?
So I oversaw the OPA division, and I would pretty much see complaints through from cradle to grave. That means their intake, triaging, assigning to detectives, supervising those cases, reviewing the entire case file for appropriateness and policy correctness. Once I approved it, it would go up the chain of command. Once I received sanctions from the command staff, I would then complete the paperwork to issue the sanctions and disciplinary details to the officers who were found guilty or sustained on violations of conduct. So I'd have those face-to-face meetings with the accused and ensure that essentially one of the big objectives was to make sure our policies and procedures were being upheld and followed by the department objectively, fairly, and timely.
And when did you leave that position?
So my last day with the department was January 5th, 2024. One of my last days in office there was in November, and I used some excuse time to ride it out to retirement.
Gotcha. All right. Now, I can't go through everything in the 61-page complaint, but I want to ask about the broader themes that seem to emerge in this document. You talk about something called rank bias. And so if I could sort of explain that, it's when complaints are leveled against high-ranking officers, you say there are often more lenient outcomes, but when allegations are against rank-and-file officers, the punishment is more harsh. Can you explain what you've observed in that regard?
Sure. So just to kind of quickly go through maybe two comparisons. So there was a detective who was the lowest ranked PO2 detective. He had believed that his spouse had been sexually assaulted or some other conduct had happened, and he reached out to the individual in question, made a threat by phone, and then on that individual's wedding day with another individual, sent an inappropriate message with a spatula, and it was determined that his conduct was inappropriate, was a violation of conduct unbecoming. Well, the department chose to give him 30 days of suspension and a last chance agreement for that. He never assaulted anybody, never threatened him in person, and once he was told to stop making contact with him, he did so. Now, this other individual was a lieutenant who was at a bar for around 9 hours one day, started
You say at a bar? I'm sorry, at a bar?
Yes, at a bar.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, started a fight with an individual. That individual went outside. He followed the individual outside, continued the altercation, and then when that individual got in the vehicle and left, he struck the vehicle with his fist, and then he got into his vehicle and drove off. He was obviously intoxicated, and he was subsequently stopped by the local police department. They chose not to go into any kind of DUI investigation with him, but there was a lot of movement from the top to get this particular lieutenant into some rehabilitation for some of the issues he was going through. By the end of it all, that lieutenant wasn't demoted. He received, I think it was 20 or less suspension days, but there was a lot of involvement to try and ensure that he got a better outcome, whereas the detective was pretty much pushed out. And there's also been other cases where there have been command staff who were basically had paperwork and circumstances arranged to help them leave the department in good standing and for fewer suspension days than what officers would receive in general. And then I've seen other officers who were forced out, told they had to take a certain amount of days, and that they had to actually submit a letter of irrevocable resignation, even though the individual was already going to leave the department.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of pressure on these individuals.
Garrett, I need to just alert you to one thing. We have heard that there will be a verdict has been reached in the New York trial. So we'll have to go to that if we need to interrupt, but we'll come back to this conversation if we have to do that. In the meantime, it will take a few moments for everybody to get to the courtroom, and we'll continue on until we have more information about what's happening in New York.
Understood.
Okay, so did you feel that the brass worked against you at times and interfered with the conduct of what are supposed to be independent investigations?
Yes, there were times where command staff circumvented the normal process and involved themselves in cases. So there was a case in which it was believed that a deputy chief had involved himself into a commander's investigation, and the Chief Drake, actually did want a full investigation into that matter, so that initiated an investigation. Well, throughout the course of that particular investigation into that deputy chief in question, it was determined that he supposedly was going to enter into a pre-investigation settlement where he'd go and acknowledge wrongdoing for his conduct. And because of that, we were told to interview him as a witness and not as an accused employee. So different questions were asked of him. He wasn't asked any accusatory questions. And so it was 5 pages of questions compared to 9 pages, for example.
Wow.
So that interview was conducted. He wasn't forthcoming with all the information he needed to be forthcoming with. Well, after that, he's allowed to sign a Form 311 remedial counseling document with that assistant chief. And on that document, he made admissions and was forthcoming about things he failed to disclose in the interview, which is a big issue. And then I had to get direction from the chain of command on how they wanted to close this out, because at that point, they didn't even think it needed to be closed out with a formal 312 complaint report. So that entire process was circumvented. And up to that point, I'll have to make this clear, we had more reasons to believe he had committed violations of policy than not. He needed to be able to give a full and truthful statement for us to finish that investigation objectively and fairly as to the allegations made. And that whole process was basically aborted because of one specific assistant chief's actions.
So somebody got in the middle of it. Quickly, do you think the department takes sexual harassment cases seriously?
No, I don't think so. I know they said that they have zero tolerance. That's what Chief Drake has said. I don't think what he's saying is true, because when you look at the actual practice of the policy or in the practice of what happens, individuals have committed discriminatory or harassing behavior, and supervisors have not been demoted because of it. An officer was given 10 suspension days instead of being terminated, and only for him to come back around within a year and commit other, abhorrent behavior that then got him terminated. But on the front end, these individuals were not treated as if the department was truly zero tolerance. So there's apparently some acceptance.
You mentioned that there was an investigation into the Covenant Manifesto leaks that came out. Some of the documents got leaked to the public. There was an investigation. Were any active officers found to have committed that leak?
No, from the information that was gathered, the best we could determine, it was actually a prior employee who no longer worked for the department. Despite that, though, one of the teams at the center of that, where many members were interviewed, they're actually brought into a meeting where they were told good news from Chief Drake that none of them were responsible for the leak, and then told bad news by another assistant chief that they were all off the team.
So they didn't do anything wrong, but that unit was disbanded, right?
That's my understanding, yes, sir. There was nothing determined to have been a violation of policy, and yet they were disbanded and reassigned.
Do you have any guidance or any thoughts, or do you have any inside knowledge about where that investigation stands? Because we hear it's still open.
I don't. I'm not privy to some of the active criminal aspects of it. I know there had been a search warrant served at one of the practitioner's offices, and I think home as well, regarding some documentation. I'm a little skeptical that it's active, open, and actually being worked. And I don't know if it was, why it hadn't already been presented to DA Funk to go ahead and see about an indictment on that individual in question. I think there's some smoke and mirrors there.
You say that the current police academy has been trimmed to almost a month because the department is so short-handed. They're trying to get officers on the street sooner, but with less training. Does that concern you?
Yes, and trimmed by over just a month. So that would be more than a month off the original time. So they're still receiving, I think it's about 4 months in the training academy plus their field training rotation. But that is less time than what was historically given. And I know Chief Drake released a statement earlier, which to me just was some statistical sleight of hand talking about post standards, which really need to be increased for training across the state of Tennessee anyway. But the real substance of the issue, and this would have been a transparent response from him, would have been that training time has been reduced in both the training academy phase and the field training program in order to get more officers on the street because they're shorthanded. Another solution to that problem would be reassigning non-essential personnel to the essential roles of the department. But instead, they're reducing training, and I'm afraid that what we're doing is we're taking good men and women who join the department, pushing them through the front door, across the factory floor, and straight into the meat grinder of the streets. They deserve better. They deserve extra training on use of force, de-escalation, and other things that have been bringing lawsuits against the department and have been historically mishandled, like domestic violence incidents.
Well, do you have confidence in Chief Drake?
You know, when he first was the chief, I had a high degree of confidence. I was actually very excited about it. But after I've seen repeated decisions, when I've seen those he has put into positions and has delegated his authority to, and then has not properly held them accountable, I'd have to say, unfortunately, no, I've lost confidence in him and other leadership in the department to do what's right for both the city and the people of the department. So my issue is not with the many hardworking men and women of the department, but with the leadership and the decisions they are making.
And finally, why are you bringing this up now? People want to know.
Sure. Well, this has been in motion for probably over a year. There's been a series of things that have developed while I was there at OPA, and it just seemed like one thing on top of another. And I knew I needed a strategy and a plan for how to execute this, when to execute it, because when we're talking about a complaint that involves lead chief, both assistant chiefs, multiple deputy chiefs, commander and director of OPA, and that all these people are either implicated or at least witnesses in something. This is a very difficult situation that I didn't believe could be fixed from the inside or would be taken serious. So the reason why I sent it to the Community Review Board and the mayor's office. So I came out now because it was just time to, I believe, a substantial case presented, written up, and articulated enough to achieve my objective of effecting a positive change within the department. I think to honor what Nashville wants from the police department and the original intention of having a community oversight board, but also for the benefit of the hardworking men and women who unfortunately are not being treated fairly by command staff.
All right. Well, we're going to have to leave it right there given the breaking nature of the news we have going on. But I want to thank you for joining us. And I'd like to say that the entire document, all 61 pages, will be published at URFARB.com. Garrett Davison, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, we are watching developments in New York where, surprisingly today, just as the day was expected to be winding down, the jury was supposed to be going home at about 4:30. That was about 21 minutes ago. Apparently, word has come out that a verdict has been reached. I see Mac Morey in the newsroom. Do you have anything you could add to this, Mac?
Yeah, so we are minutes from a verdict being announced right here. The jury had 3 notes requested in these past couple of days, and it was thought, like you said, Brian, that they were going to end around 4:30 today. Trump's team apparently was laughing. Todd Blanche and Donald Trump exchanging notes, whispering in each other's ears, laughing. The whole mood apparently has shifted in the courtroom because they know that a verdict will be announced here very, very shortly. Eric Trump is the only family member of the former president in the courtroom with him. Sitting behind him, and Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg is now in the courtroom. That's the latest news that we have.
All right, so it was an interesting day. They started out by hearing the judge reread some of his instructions and also hearing the testimony being read back to them by, I guess, the court reporter that came from David Pecker and from Michael Cohen. And so that was the sort of, the way the day started. They did about 12 hours of jury deliberation. And now, at the end of the day here Thursday, we are waiting them. It takes a little while to get the jury in the room and get all the lawyers assembled and get everything ready to go. But we are expecting that any moment we will hear the verdict of this case that so many of us have been watching so very closely. So a big news day here at Super Talk 99.7. We're going to take a little commercial break here, but I want you to know that if during the commercial break anything happens, we'll stop the commercial break and we'll come right back here and give you the verdict. So don't go anywhere. You're listening to Super Talk 99.7 WTN, 53 minutes past the hour. Let me talk to you about the folks over at Busy Bee HVAC. You know, they are good for HVAC and plumbing. And you know what? They want you to become a member of the Beehive Club. When you are a member of the Beehive Club, it starts at $99. You get a lot for that. $99 a year, 3 annual tune-ups, one aimed at heating, one aimed at cooling, one aimed at plumbing. You get a 10% discount on repairs, priority front-of-the-line service, $100 annual accrued replacement credit with a maximum of $1,000. No overtime or holiday fees ever, and you get access to Busy Bee special promotions. Now, if you have a big project, let's say a heating or a cooling project, and you need to replace a system, which happens. You know, these things are not made to last forever. With approved credit, you can get no interest if paid in full within 15 months. For plumbing projects, you can get the same thing with approved credit for 18 months. So Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling is your official Rude Pro partner for satisfaction guaranteed. Call Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling at 615-775-7833, online at busybeehvac.com.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Matt Murphy for Members Nutrition. I want to tell you about the Members Nutrition difference, and I want to encourage you to go over to the Members Nutrition website. Number one, they believe at Members Nutrition that they can sell vitamins and supplements at a lower cost point, and they're doing it every single day at membersnutrition.com. Number two, they want to make these products right here in the United States of America, not from some overseas company, and they do that every single day. I encourage you to go to membersnutrition.com. You'll get 50% off your purchase price at checkout. You don't have to put in any codes. Just go to membersnutrition.com. Once again, membersnutrition.com.
A verdict has been reached in the Donald Trump trial. They're awaiting the jury. Trump and his attorneys and the prosecutors occasionally chatting amongst themselves right now. We're reading the tea leaves, but we do think this will be some not guilty, some guilty. They will be reaching off each count. We're waiting for that verdict right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
And that's right. And we will bring you that information just as soon as it is available, no matter what we're doing. If we're in a commercial break, we will stop. If we are in the middle of the news, we will break into the news to give you more news about what's going on. So you need to stay with us. Of course, this is everybody says the trial of the century. A former president on trial, 34 counts of falsifying business records. What is the verdict? Apparently, the jury has reached a decision, and we will bring it to you the moment we have it. You don't want to move where you are. Stay tuned. You're listening to Super Talk 99.7, 59 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock.
.401, I'm Mac Morey with your top story. 79 degrees in Nashville. Traffic, weather, 5 minutes away. A verdict has been reached in the Donald Trump trial. The jury has reached a decision in the Donald Trump New York criminal trial. They're first going to read a verdict to each count. Then each juror will be asked if that's the verdict that they rendered themselves. They're filling out the paperwork, and that paperwork just shows each count with two boxes that read either guilty or not guilty. And because we've heard that this process may take a half hour, it seems probable that will be some charges acquitted, others not. There will not be a clean sweep in either way, all guilty, all not guilty. The jury had 3 notes requested over the past 2 days, all of them just wanting reread testimony and having the instructions reread to them as well. It was thought that there would be more notes requested, and Donald Trump's team had thought that they were going to be released today and would come back tomorrow. This decision comes after over 11 hours of deliberation these past 2 days. Eric Trump, the only family member there with the former president in the courtroom, sitting behind his father. The judge has called for the jury. That's our latest update there. The IRS announced its free tax filing tool, Direct File, will be expanded to all 50 states starting next year. Imna Win.
The IRS's Direct File tool allows taxpayers to file their federal tax returns directly online, bypassing services like TurboTax. Direct File started as a pilot program in 12 states where 140,000 taxpayers saved $5.6 million in filing costs. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen emphasized the Biden administration's commitment to saving Americans time and money. Funding for Direct File comes from the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022, despite efforts by Republican lawmakers to reduce IRS funding.
Here in Tennessee, with the Crime Story News 2 reports that an Ashland City man was arrested for solicitation of a minor. The TBI says that 20-year-old Keith Choate was communicating with who he thought was a 14-year-old girl, actually was an undercover agent. Officials say that Choate allegedly sent explicit photos and asked her to send some back. He's being held in the Cheatham County Jail on a $50,000 bond. Boeing news: after that Alaska Airlines door plug flew off flight in mid-flight, Boeing was ordered to come up with an action plan to improve safety of its airplanes. It had 90 days to form the plan, and today the plan was presented by Boeing executives to the FAA. Alex Stone.
Coming out of a 3-hour meeting at FAA headquarters, FAA Administrator Michael Whitaker said Boeing has now delivered the agency a detailed plan for improving safety and that systematic changes inside Boeing will be hard but are necessary. He says a plan is detailed.
Quality management, a more robust safety management system.
Whitaker saying Boeing is not allowed to increase production numbers of the 737 MAX until the FAA sees improvements.
That is the latest news. And again, a jury has reached a verdict in the Donald Trump criminal trial there in New York. Our latest update, a few more court officers in the courtroom now, standing in the aisle and around the room. Stay updated right here on Super Talk. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lock boxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
We have developments. We have a verdict in the Trump trial, and the first little bit of information has come out of the courtroom, and I need to get it to you right now. So let's call this breaking news story. Trump has been found guilty on the first count of falsifying business records, making him the first former president be convicted of a felony. The other 33 counts are being read. This is a convoluted kind of verdict because of the way the judge allowed this thing to be considered by the jury, something that's come under a great deal of criticism. The courtroom is packed. The jury is now in. And according to thehill.com and their reporter, Zach Schoenfeld, who's in the room there, he's been found guilty on the first count of falsifying business records. And the other 33 counts are now being read out. This will take some time.
We now have the verdicts of 11 verdict counts.
All right.
And
Maybe what you know.
1 through 11, all guilty so far here. 1 through 12, all guilty here. They're reading them off right now, one by one. 13 guilty.
So it looks like the jury has come back with a guilty verdict in this particular case. And again, we have to be careful here because these the way these counts were laid out, 34 counts, it's very convoluted, and it'll take some time to do a little analysis. But it doesn't sound like a very good outcome for the former president on these 34 counts of falsifying business records. And essentially, if the early reporting from the courtroom is correct, he has been found guilty and will be charged or convicted of a felony. Now, there will be an automatic appeal to this process. They have made very clear, the attorneys for Donald Trump have said that they will appeal this immediately, but still to be resolved here in the next few moments is number one, will the judge immediately sentence Donald Trump, or will they do that at another time? That's the remaining question. It is possible that the judge in this particular trial could immediately go to the punishment phase if they have the ability to do that after reading out all the verdicts. Anything more there?
And Donald Trump has been convicted on all charges there, Brian. All charges found guilty.
34 charges have been found guilty by a New York jury in this very, very unusual hush money trial. So I think the real question now is what happens next. We do know that the Secret Service, because they have to plan for everything, did do the initial planning of what would happen if the judge said you're going to jail, in doing it now. They have made some conversation because, he gets Secret Service protection, and even if he has to go to jail, I assume that the protection will follow him all the way to jail. That's a very unusual circumstance that we're in right now. And that is, but the bad news is President Donald Trump has been convicted, according to reports from the courtroom as they're reading out the verdict now and going through the convoluted paperwork. He has been convicted and of all 34 counts of falsifying business records to cover up a $130,000 payment to porn star Stormy Daniels in an effort to buy her silence ahead of the 2016 election. The presumptive Republican president, John Clemente, has denied all wrongdoing in the case and says the sexual encounter never did happen. But the jury has listened to the witnesses and has come up with a different verdict. As much has been said about this New York courtroom, this judge, many have suggested that he has had his thumb on the scale during some of this in favor of the prosecution, and I think there's a pretty good case to be made for that. But it is the process, and now the question is, what happens to Donald Trump? Is there any more detail coming out there from the courtroom?
We now have know that the court officer has asked if they want the jurors to be polled, and Donald Trump's lawyer, Todd Blanche, has said yes. So now that just means they'll go one by one to each juror and say, is this what you rendered? Is this the verdict that you rendered? And they will each say yes or possibly no. Yeah, no, that's exactly, that's a very traditional thing. And then, it's again, many people thought that they might find one person on the jury who would hold out. But after you heard the reading of the testimony today, I sort of began to feel as if the jury was looking very closely at the testimony, and then they asked for the judge to reread a portion of his instructions. And the end result of that was that he spent some time focusing on the part about, the judge's instructions with regard to certain elements. Let's see, I've got that right here. I want to make sure I get that right. Here it is. He wanted to reread the arguments about the stuff that had to do with his standards for conviction. Many people think that this is a very abnormal. Some legal analysts have said that the way the judge constructed the elements, the standards of conviction and the charges were extremely unusual and not seen in many places.
Many have looked and said that there is clearly reversible error, but there's not clear whether or not you can get a fair hearing. And many people think in New York State, where the judiciary is largely very liberal, it is known for that. So it's not clear whether or not he would get a good outcome. Others have said that perhaps the Trump should try to appeal directly to the Supreme Court. In some cases, the Supreme Court will take it up if it's ultimately coming to them anyway. But if you're just joining us, the bad news for Donald Trump is that he has been found guilty on all 34 counts of falsifying business records. They are polling the jury, which will take some time. The jury will be dismissed, and then they will begin, I guess, the process of what happens next.
And that jury has been excused. They've left, and we're seeing here that no jurors looked at Donald Trump. Attorney Todd Blanche is now moving for an acquittal of those charges, notwithstanding the verdict.
Okay, and that probably will be denied by the judge, and then they will go back and now begin the process of deciding what happens next. Now, it is often common in some in courts to say, we'll come back on a certain date and we'll talk about punishments and what's going to happen to you as a result of this verdict. But I've also read that in New York courts, it's not uncommon for the judge to go straight to punishment phase of the trial the moment a verdict is read. It's late in the day. They like to be out of there by about 5 o'clock, but it's not going to happen. It's 5:15 now in New York. So it seems that they're probably in for a little while as we try to decipher exactly what all this means. But if you're joining us now, I just want to repeat once again, Donald Trump has been found guilty on all 34 counts of falsifying business records, and the jury has been excused, and an acquittal has been requested by the defense team. It's highly unlikely that will be accepted by the judge. He will say no. But we're sort of in a moment now where we're trying to figure out what the next step will be. Will Donald Trump leave this courtroom tonight, or will they send him to the Gray Bar Hotel? One thing that I think is pretty interesting, as we were talking earlier, is that many Americans have been looking at this trial, and they've been polled about it by different pollsters. Do you think this will impact, your belief about the candidate? Would you still vote for him if he's convicted of a felony? And indeed, a vast majority of voters seem to say no, it would have no impact. And for those that there were some who said, yeah, I would be more likely to vote for him. And then some said, well, I'd be less likely to vote for him. But those sort of washed each other out. So, the general thinking is, from a polling standpoint, this doesn't change the election very much. I think the other question that's still to be answered here is, will we have a comment today from the White House? Now, there had been some reporting that President Biden would come to the microphones and have something to say, and then there have been others who said, no, that won't happen. We do know that the White House has sent out its surrogates to hold press conferences outside the courtroom, and that didn't go so well for one Robert De Niro. But the question is, will the White House have anything to say? Many people say and argue that would prove the point that this is all political, not a prosecution, but a political persecution. But nonetheless, there's a distinct possibility that the current president will have something to say about the former president's conviction. Anything new that you can add?
Yeah, Brian, you correctly assumed that Judge Mershon has denied that acquittal request from Todd Blanche. Now, Todd Blanche now asking for a sentencing date there in late July. We do know the former president still sitting there at the defense table.
All right, and we will go live if he comes out and says anything. But the question is, of course, do you set the sentencing for July, or does the judge turn that down and decide to go straight to the punishment phase? He has that option. So I don't know. I guess there were probably the attorneys could make a pretty good case that we should have some time in between the verdict and the punishment phase, and that's what they're requesting. But it's not at all clear exactly how that will go. So there we have it. The 12 jurors have indicated they've reached a unanimous decision, and he's been found guilty on 34 counts. We're watching exactly what's coming down. We're getting this, of course, in dribs and drabs out of the courtroom, and because we do have reporters there, but no live microphones. Some of the news organizations that are covering this live have completely locked up. Everybody's looking. For example, the Associated Press website is apparently overwhelmed at the moment and not responding. But there you have it. We're giving the very latest information about this from our various sources in the newsroom, in the courtroom rather, of what is going on. Again, former President Donald Trump, charged with 34 counts of falsifying business records, has been found guilty on all charges, and they have polled the jury. The jury's been dismissed, and now here comes Donald Trump. He's about to emerge from the courtroom, and we're going to take his comments live. He's coming to the microphones now. Here is the former president of the United States after being convicted of 34 counts.
This was a disgrace. This was a rigged trial by a conflicted judge who was corrupt. It's a rigged trial, a disgrace. They wouldn't give us a venue change. We were at 5% or 6% in this district, in this area. This was a rigged, disgraceful trial. But the real verdict is going to be November 5th by the people. And they know what happened here, and everybody knows what happened here. You have a Soros-backed DA and the whole thing. We didn't do a thing wrong. I'm a very innocent man, and it's okay. I'm fighting for our country. I'm fighting for our Constitution. Our whole country is being rigged right now. This was done by the Biden administration in order to wound or hurt an opponent, a political opponent. And I think it's just a disgrace. And we'll keep fighting. We'll fight till the end, and we'll win, because our country's gone to hell. We don't have the same country anymore. We have a divided mess. We're a nation in decline, serious decline. Millions and millions of people pouring into our country right now, from prisons and from mental institutions, terrorists, and they're taking over our country. We have a country that's in big trouble. But this was a rigged decision right from day one, with a conflicted judge who should have never been allowed to try this case, never. And we will fight for our Constitution. This is long from over. Thank you very much.
Why should voters vote for a convicted felon?
Are you going to drop out?
And so the president has now walked away from the cameras, and the sentencing has now been set, as he exited the courtroom, we learned, for July 11th. That's when the judge will hand down the sentencing. So Donald Trump is free man, and we can go about his business as far as we know. He can go back on the campaign trail, and I assume that he will, but he will have to be back in court on July 11th as this case will be adjudicated and a sentence will be handed down by this judge. This is, of course, you're talking about very, very complicated legal issues, and you're also talking about, other appeals that will be filed. So it's interesting to see what might happen. And again, there has been talk that Donald Trump and his attorneys might appeal directly to the Supreme Court, seeing how it may end up there anyway. And whether or not the Supreme Court wants to take that on is an open question. But not a particularly good day for the former president, as he's been convicted on 34 counts of falsifying business records and is now, in the eyes of the law, a convicted felon. And those are the facts. Whether it's fair or not, that's for each of us to decide. But one way or the other, that has been the ruling today from a jury of very liberal jury pool from New York City. As the former president pointed out, he only polled about 5 or 6% in this particular area. So you know that the bent of the jury was very blue. We know that the judge was very much with his thumb on the scale, it would seem, doing unusual and something, say, radically inappropriate things. But one way or the other, as it stands right now, in the eyes of the law, Donald Trump is a convicted felon. We're going to take a break, come back and give you more as soon as we have it. It's 23 minutes past the hour. You know, the chairman of the Federal Reserve has said that we're on an unsustainable fiscal path. We aren't going to pay off the $34 trillion debt anytime soon. They'll just print money to pay the interest on the debt and thus weaken the U.S. dollar. Perhaps it's time to look at another kind of investment. Maybe you've thought about adding gold or other precious metals to your portfolio, but you feel you don't have the knowledge you need to make that smart decision. So why don't you do what I did? Get professional guidance from the folks at Nashville Gold and Coin. This is the way it works. You make an appointment. You'll sit down one-on-one, and they will answer all your questions and help you make the precious metals investment that is right for you. It is a friendly process. You'll learn a lot. You'll never be subjected to a high-pressure sales pitch. Gold and silver can be a safe haven in uncertain economic times, and my friends at Nashville Gold and Coin are standing by to answer all your questions about the precious metals market. To set up that one-on-one appointment, just go to NashvilleGoldandCoin.com. That's NashvilleGoldandCoin.com.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lock boxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
Former President Donald Trump has been found guilty on all 34 felony charges accusing him of falsifying business records. We hear more about the jury's decision, plus we hear from the former president himself. We have some money news as well. It's all here at 4:30 Super Talk, 997 WTN.
Yep, this means that Trump is the first president to be convicted of a crime in the history of the United States. Again, if you're just joining us and you've been interested to know what the verdict will be, I mean, it was the end of the day. It was about 4:30. They were expected to go home at about 4:30. That was about an hour ago, but they didn't break. And then the word came out from the jury that they had reached a verdict. It took a few minutes to get everybody together in the courtroom, but the outcome of the trial is not good for the former president, found guilty on all 34 counts in this hush money case, and he now stands in the eyes of the law as a convicted felon. The punishment phase of this trial will be in July. July 11th is when this will take place. So it's going to be interesting because I think we have a debate scheduled right now for June 27th. So in between the conviction and the punishment phase, we'll be having a presidential debate. And again, as we pointed out, there is nothing that prevents, when you're a convicted felon, you can be a convicted felon and still run for the office of the presidency, because the Constitution does not speak of that. That is not a bar to running for the presidency. And the polls have suggested that, it won't make a big difference with a lot of voters who have been following this thing with great interest. So, again, I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to go to the news here in just a moment, and you'll hear some of the things that Donald Trump said if you just joined us. He says it's a rigged verdict and a rigged trial, as you might expect. But then we're going to open up the phone lines after the news at 615-737-9986 to hear your reaction and your thoughts. So, if you have something you'd like to get off your chest about this, if you have things you want to say, this is the time that you can do it. 615-737-9986. We'll take some of your calls immediately after the news. It is now 4:30 on Super Talk.
.30, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, 80 degrees, forecast, and a traffic report just ahead here in Nashville. A verdict reached in the Donald Trump trial. The former president found guilty on all 34 felony charges accusing him of falsifying business records. He's denied all wrongdoing. Aaron Katursky.
The invoices, the checks, the ledger entries are the allegedly falsified business records, and they all relate to a reimbursement in monthly installments to Donald Trump's former fixer and lawyer, Michael Cohen. On the eve of the 2016 election, he had paid porn actress Stormy Daniels $130,000 in hush money. And when Trump reimbursed Cohen in those monthly installments, that's when prosecutors said he falsified the business records to try to hide it from voters.
And Donald Trump's attorney, Todd Blanche, says there's no way the jury could have reached this verdict without the testimony of Michael Cohen. The former president spoke to the press after the verdict.
This was a rigged, disgraceful trial. But the real verdict is going to be November 5th by the people. And they know what happened here, and everybody knows what happened here. You have a sore respect, DA, and the whole thing. We didn't do a thing wrong. I'm a very innocent man.
July 11th will be the sentencing date. There is no bail. Now over the Money News, Daria Albinger.
Stocks fell on some bleak earnings statements. The Dow was off 330 points. The S&P closed down 31, and the Nasdaq fell 184 points. Salesforce, a company that helps businesses manage their customers, had its worst day ever. Shares tumbling more than 21% after earnings that fell short of analysts' expectations. Kohl's had it even worse, down 23.3% and cut its forecast for sales and other targets this year. The economy grew at a sluggish pace of 1.3% in the first quarter of the year. The Commerce Department says it was the weakest gross domestic product since spring of 2022. The GDP is the total output of goods and services. The IRS is expanding its free filing tool to all 50 states starting next year. Direct File was launched as a pilot program in a dozen states this year, and the IRS says it saved taxpayers more than $5.5 million in filing costs.
And that's the latest news, traffic, weather on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Matt Murphy for Members Nutrition. I want to tell you about the Members Nutrition difference, and I want to encourage you to go over to the Members Nutrition website. Number one, they believe at Members Nutrition that they can sell vitamins and supplements at a lower cost point, and they're doing it every single day at membersnutrition.com. Number two, they want to make these products right here in the United States of America, not from some overseas company, and they do that every single day. I encourage you to go to membersnutrition.com. You'll get 50% off your purchase price at checkout. You don't have to put in any codes. Just go to membersnutrition.com. Once again, membersnutrition.com.
It's 37 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. If you're just joining us, just getting in your car, there's not good news for Donald Trump out of this court in New York. He's been found guilty on all 34 counts of falsifying business records and now becomes the first president in the history of the United States to become a convicted felon. And the jury was released. The sentencing phase of this has been set for July 11th. Trump has had some comments to make outside the courtroom saying that the process was rigged. We have some reaction here from his campaign manager. His fix was always in. We have some response from some of the people who've been considered potential vice presidential contenders for Donald Trump. Today's verdict shows how corrupt and rigged the American justice system has become under Joe Biden, writes Representative Elise Stefanik. I fully support President Trump appealing this decision and look forward to the New York Court of Appeals delivering justice and overturning this verdict. Senator Marco Rubio called the verdict a complete travesty that makes a mockery of our system of justice. And J.D. Vance of Ohio, Senator Vance, said this isn't justice, it's election interference. So is this a prosecution or a persecution? To the phone lines we go, 615-737-9986. All lines are full at the moment, but as we clear some of these calls, you want to join the conversation, please dial in and we'll get you processed into the system. We start with David in Lebanon. David, you're on with Brian on the Drive. Your thoughts on the verdict today?
It's supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. If these are misdemeanor charges that were elevated to felonies in furtherance of another crime, then they have said he is guilty of that crime because it's never been adjudicated, never been alleged, anything like that. And they are presuming guilt in order to elevate these charges to a felony. The law is crap, and it's guilty until proven innocent is what they're doing. Ridiculous.
Yeah, there are many people who've looked at the way this particular case was structured and think that there really isn't a case there. I mean, they really don't. You know, I think the good news is that the American people have looked at this and they don't seem to be particularly troubled by what's going on here, and they sort of recognize it, I think, for what it is. David in Mount Juliet. Hello, David. You're on with Brian on the Drive. Your thoughts, sir?
How you doing, Brian?
I'm fine. What do you think?
Well, I can't really tell you what I truly think because I don't want you to hit the button on me. But this guy that we got in the White House now that is pretending to run this country has done nothing but commit treason since day one in this office, and nothing has been done. Nothing gets done to anyone except the Republican. This is all political. He's turned this country into a third world country by doing this, and it's time the people of this country take it back.
David, I detect in your voice that you're very angry at what has happened here today.
That's not even close. That's not even close. That man has done nothing wrong. He was good for this country. He will be good for this country when we put him back in office. Biden and his little dominions, all of them. The House, Senate, all the Democrats need to go.
All right, David, thank you for the call. I appreciate it. JC in Nashville, you're up next on the Drive. Your thoughts, sir?
Hey, man, I think this is the start of us being a communist country. If you don't go with what the Democrat Party and the cabal, so-called, want you to do, they're just simply going to put you in jail. The American people don't have the rights to vote anymore. If you don't vote the way that they want you to vote, they'll just rig the election. I mean, look at it 4 years ago. Clearly, Donald Trump won. He had the electoral votes. He had the popular votes from the people and still lost that election. This year, 4 years later, hell, they're just going to put him in prison. That way they don't have to worry about him no more. It's communist, man. We're not America no more.
All right, JC, thank you very much.
Sad day in America.
Let me move through some of these calls. Jim in Auburntown, the president has been found guilty on all 34 counts. What is your reaction?
I'm sad. I served 22 years in the military. My dad served. My cousins, I've had uncles serve. I've had a cousin die in Vietnam. And I tell you what, this is a sad day. And whether you're Democrat, Republican, or independent, you better be looking out because, I mean, our system's gone. America's going down. And I had one question for you because I'm not a lawyer or anything like that. Can he appeal this before they do the conviction thing?
That's a good question. I think the answer to that is yes, but I'm not a lawyer either. But I think that possibly they could begin the process. They immediately ask for an acquittal, which is a standard thing that lawyers will do, defense lawyers will do after a conviction. But the judge, routinely will deny that. And so now we have to wait till July 11th to find out what the punishment will be. But I believe that an appeal can be filed even before the punishment phase is upon us. Thank you so much for the call. Danny in Lebanon, you're up next on the drive. Danny, what's your thought?
Hey, Brian. Obviously not too happy. What I'm really concerned about with this kangaroo court with the jester judge there, day of conviction, or day of sentencing, when he goes in there, they said that he could get up to 100 years in prison. If he was convicted on all 34 counts. If that's the case, I'm afraid that's going to start some kind of revolution. It's going to a civil war or something. There's going to be some serious violence if they lock that man up for any amount of time like that, because everybody sees what's going on. Nobody's going to put up with that. I mean, we fought for America once, more than once, and yeah, we just can't tolerate it. And I can't wait for Mark Levin to come on after your show because he's fired up.
He'll pop a cork tonight, boy. I'll tell you what, he'll be loaded for bear. I'm pretty sure. All right, Danny, thank you so much. Nicole in Watertown, tell us what you think, Nicole. The verdict is in, and the president has been found guilty.
Honestly, I agree with everyone. I'm angry. I'm sad for our country. I'm sad for what my young children are growing up into. I'm an elder millennial that they call. So, I remember how things were on September 12th, 2001, and the unity that America had, and to see in just in those 20 years where we've come, it's heartbreaking. And I agree. I mean, this can't withstand. Although something else that they need to keep in mind is that there's a precedent set now. And, that might not be something that works in their favor so well later on.
Yeah, the Democrats are no doubt cheering. And the real question is, will the current president have anything to say out of the White House? Because there have been some indications he might do that. We'll be watching to see if that happens. I think that most political advisors would tell him not to do it, but that doesn't mean that he won't. Thank you for the call, Nicole. 615-737-9986. We're taking calls on your reaction. The president has been found guilty on all 34 counts. It is now, in the eyes of the law, a convicted felon. Jace in Waynesboro, you're up next on the drive. What is your thought, Jace?
I think that we're about to see like a big landslide for Trump. I think because
you think this is going to backfire.
Yeah, this is going to backfire bad for them, I think. I think that this could be, like, pretty bad.
In what way?
I just think that they're going to win loot. This is going to be, like, cause, like, a big outcry. I think that it's going to get, like, tons of Republicans out, and I think that Joe Biden's going to lose badly.
Because of the backlash. All right. Thank you for that, Jace. I appreciate it. James in Lebanon, you're up with Brian on the drive. What do you say?
Thank you for taking my call. Just want to say, where do you begin? First of all, I want to say there's the laws of nature. There's the laws of God. And I pray that as the judge, as the jury, and as those involved came and judged this man, I claim that may God judge each individual involved judge their flesh, judge their soul according to how they judge him. You can claim this through the Bible because the Bible says God is the judge, but what people don't do, they don't release the judgment, and you don't judge, let God judge. So now I release that judgment in the name of Jesus Christ. I plead the blood over presidents, and I pray that everyone gets judged in the flesh and in their soul and in their spirit.
All right, James, thank you so much. Now, John in Nashville, you're up next on the drive. I mean, the phones are just lighting up on this thing, 615-737-9986. Your reaction to the fact that the president has been convicted on all 34 counts. John, what do you think?
Hey, Brian. Obviously upset, and I'm an immigrant, and I know what happens in my country, my original country, and we are turning into a third world country, where the people in office, people in power, persecute previous ex-president, ex-officials based on their political ideas. So we are turning into the Democrats turning this country into a third world country. We lost. I mean, there's no faith in our justice system. I mean, obviously, a lot of Democrats, starting from Hillary, did a lot of bad stuff, and she wasn't persecuted. She wasn't judged like Trump, which obviously it's a scam. The whole thing is a sham.
All right.
And it's not going to affect his popularity. I think he's going to win.
You know, there's a real interesting thing that happens. Every time they have done something, brought a charge against Donald Trump, you know, the thing that has happened is he has just rebounded. The numbers move up on him. It's almost like he, as they call him, the Teflon Don, nothing really sticks. Let me get the last two calls in here before we have to take another break. Steve in Murfreesboro, you're up next on the drive. Steve, what's on your mind at this time, having heard the verdict from the New York jury?
I'm neither happy or sad about it. I wasn't surprised, but I followed the case closely, following either people on Twitter that were in the courtroom or, you know, sometimes read the daily transcripts, sometimes read some of the motions, the rulings themselves, the jury instructions. I think anybody that was reading the source material could see the evidence was outlined very clearly and very concisely against him, and I'm not surprised at all by the verdict. And I have a little bit different take on it. I see this as one more of America's promises delivered, and that is the idea that nobody is above the law. You know, I think a lot of people are acting like somehow he shouldn't be impacted by these things because he was president or he's running for president. And I look at it as like, I don't care one way or the other than once again, America has shown itself that nobody is above the law. I can't think of another country where you could criminally prosecute a former president like that. So I think it's a good day for America overall.
All right, Steve, thank you for that. Definitely on this station, a minority opinion, but you're entitled to it. Mike in Fayetteville, you're up next on the drive. Your thoughts, Mike?
Hey, Brian, it's good to be sad for our country. It's also a good time to be mad. This should make us all resolute. The reason we have the Second Amendment is to control a tyrannical government. It has now become so, and it's probably time for a fight. Bring the fight to them. Don't wait till November. It's probably rigged. So sort of a divine intervention saving this thing. We're going to have to save it ourselves, and it took fighting and bloodshed to form this country. And it's probably going to take it again to fix it.
Mike, thank you so much for your comments. You know, look, I detect a great deal of anger among people who support Donald Trump, and understandably so. This is not a good day for the former president. I'm going to put my own personal beliefs here. I do not believe that this was a fair trial. I believe that the judge had his thumb on the scale from day one. I think there's a very good case to be made that this case should never have been brought. They seem to be doing legal backflips in order to bring the case. But once the case was brought, it was shameful to me the way that the judge has handled this. And it's of course in about probably one of the bluest jury pools you could find. I mean, this is a very liberal area of New York, and it is not surprising that this has gone badly for the former president. But should he have ever been tried on these charges is one of the big questions. And there will be an appeal. We're not done with this yet. Sentencing is not until July, and there could be a lot of shoes that drop between now and then. But if past his prologue here, it would seem to me that the outcome of this will be that Donald Trump's support will go up, not down, because that's what's happened every time they have thrown something at him. Now, again, a very interesting turn of events. And if you're just joining us, just getting in your car, Donald Trump has been found guilty on 34 counts of falsifying business records by a New York jury, and sentencing has been set for July 11th. It's 53 minutes past the hour now. Have you noticed how unreliable things have become these days? Like when someone tells you it'll be ready at 4 p.m. and it's not ready. Well, people are really tired of that kind of stuff. And if you've had it with unreliable vehicle repair shops, come to URFARB. URFARB turns unreliable into reliable, and URFARB has your vehicle ready when it's supposed to be ready, so you don't have to stand around waiting. URFARB repairs all European cars with quality that beats the dealer without dealer pricing. That's because dealer repair shops are designed to pay virtually all of a dealership's overhead, and that's a lot of money. Why would you want to pay for that? At URFARB, reliable means a 3-year nationwide warranty plus a free loaner car with every repair appointment. Make sure you call ahead because loaner cars are very popular. So if you're tired of unreliable vehicle repair shops, come to where it is reliable. URFARB, family-owned for 24 years. Call 844-URFARB or visit myurfix.com. That's myurfix.com.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Matt Murphy for Members Nutrition. I want to tell you about the Members Nutrition difference, and I want to encourage you to go over to the Members Nutrition website. Number one, they believe at Members Nutrition that they can sell vitamins and supplements at a lower cost point, and they're doing it every single day at membersnutrition.com. Number two, they want to make these products right here in the United States of America, not from some overseas company, and they do that every single day. I encourage you to go to membersnutrition.com. You'll get 50% off your purchase price at checkout. You don't have to put in any codes. Just go to membersnutrition.com. Once again, membersnutrition.com.
Let me tell you about the folks over at DT McCall's. They've been around for more than 100 years in Middle Tennessee with 5 locations. One of them is near you, no doubt. And if you need things for your home, you need furniture, you need appliances, you need something to help you work out in your yards, just a mower or other power equipment, if you need a gun safe, I mean, anything that you can think of for your home, you're going to find it at DT McCall's. Now, they have a great reputation of dealing with people honestly. That's how you survive more than a century, by treating people right. They will give you an honest price. It will be a good price, and they won't charge you extra for things like delivery or setup or haul away. They don't play the games that the big box stores play with you. And indeed, you know, you're going to be very happy. I mean, you come to the Casa Wilson, you're going to find a lot of stuff around my house that came from DT McCall's, and each interaction I've had with them over the years has been just a pleasant experience every single time. So if you need anything for your house, why don't you check out their 5 convenient locations, and you can also find out where those are and all the things that they can do for you by going to their website, dtmccalls.com.
It is 5:02. I'm Mac Morey with your top stories right now. 78 degrees in Nashville. Traffic report and that complete weather forecast in 5 minutes. A verdict reached, and Donald Trump has been found guilty on all 34 counts of falsifying business records.
Guilty on all counts. The jury in the historic criminal trial of Donald Trump convicting the former president of falsifying business records after 2 days of deliberations. ABC's Aaron Katersky is at the courthouse.
An incredible verdict on this day in May, late May. The former president of the United States convicted as charged. 34 counts of falsifying business records. And as the crowd outside this courthouse found out, a big cheer went up from opponents of the former president.
The jury convinced by the evidence, both documents and testimony showing Trump reimbursed former fixer Michael Cohen for payments to Stormy Daniels to hide an alleged affair ahead of the 2016 election, along with the scheme to keep salacious stories from being published. Trump calling the trial and verdicts rigged, claiming he's innocent. Sentencing is set for July 11th.
And it was a completely unanimous decision, as it had to be, by all 12 jurors. They all came to the same conclusion. This is the lowest level of felony in New York. It's a Class E felony, so it's unlikely, not impossible, but unlikely that he would be sentenced to any prison time for this case. Back here in Tennessee, juvenile crime on the rise. News 2 reports that at least 7 teens and children have been killed in Davidson County so far just this year. Data shows that children from 0 to 17 have made up a little over 16% of homicide victims so far. The latest incident being a 13-year-old boy, Aiden Hayes, who was killed last night in a park in Bellevue. According to preliminary data, the number of victims so far this year more than double the number of teens and children killed by the end of May in 2022. And in a major policy reversal, the Biden administration has said Ukraine can use U.S.-provided weapons to strike inside Russia near the area of Kharkiv. With this move, 13 countries have now given Ukraine permission to strike Russian military targets using Western weapons. Karen Travers.
Ukraine's President Zelensky recently told the New York Times that having the ability to use Western-provided weapons to strike inside Russia is essential for Ukraine's success. He said he appealed to senior U.S. officials to allow Ukraine to do this. Russian President Vladimir Putin has promised to respond, saying just a week ago that Moscow would retaliate with strikes on British targets if British weapons are used by Ukraine inside Russia. President Biden's been adamant the U.S. will not engage in any direct conflict with Russia because he says it would lead to World War III.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lockboxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
8 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. We are going wall to wall with our coverage of what has happened in New York. If you're just getting into your car, you may not have heard the news, but Donald Trump has been found guilty on all 34 counts of falsifying business records to conceal an alleged affair during the 2016 campaign. The reaction is coming fast and furious from various quarters. The president of the United States, Joe Biden, they thought he might make a statement. So far, no indication of that, although Alvin Bragg, the DA, is set to make a statement to cameras in about 21 minutes from now, if it stays on time, obviously wanting to take a victory lap. At the White House, the campaign, I guess, actually put this out, said President Biden on Thursday said there's only one way to keep former President Trump out of the White House at the polls in November after he was found guilty in this case, and that is to vote at the ballot box. It's the only way to keep him out of the Oval Office, and then they shared a link to donate to the Biden campaign. Interestingly enough, the Trump campaign donation site has gone down. And I don't know if that's because somebody's messing around with it or it's just been overwhelmed. But apparently you cannot get through to that. Here's a reaction from Donald Trump Jr. I'll have to be careful here because he has tweeted this out. Such BS, Trump Jr. said in one post. Guilty on all counts, the Democrats have succeeded in their years-long attempt to turn America into a third world S-hole. November 5th is our last chance to save America, he said in another. Then he pointed out something that I haven't really thought about, but it is true. Sentencing is set for July 11th, and that will be 4 days before the GOP convention starts on the 15th of July. The tweets come after the former president was found guilty on all 34 counts in the New York trial. The former president, after hearing the verdict, his attorneys asked for an immediate acquittal and had asked the judge to overturn it in a directed verdict, and the judge said no. The jury was dismissed. The sentencing was set for July 11th. Donald Trump walked to the hallway and spoke to the camera in that echoey hallways, and here's how that went down.
This was a disgrace. This was a rigged trial by a conflicted judge who was corrupt. It's a rigged trial, a disgrace. They wouldn't give us a venue change. We were at 5% or 6% in this district, in this area. This was a rigged, disgraceful trial. But the real verdict is going to be November 5th by the people. And they know what happened here, and everybody knows what happened here. You have a Soros-backed DA. And the whole thing, we didn't do a thing wrong. I'm a very innocent man, and it's okay. I'm fighting for our country. I'm fighting for our Constitution. Our whole country is being rigged right now. This was done by the Biden administration in order to wound or hurt an opponent, a political opponent. And I think it's just a disgrace. And we'll keep fighting. We'll fight till the end, and we'll win, because our country's gone to hell. We don't have the same country anymore. We have a divided mess. We're a nation in decline, serious decline. Millions and millions of people pouring into our country right now from prisons and from mental institutions, terrorists, and they're taking over our country. We have a country that's in big trouble. But this was a rigged decision right from day one with a conflicted judge who should have never been allowed to try this case, never. And we will fight for our Constitution. This is long from over. Thank you very much.
And with that, the president departed and is on his way back to his home. They have actually a helicopter tracking him across the city of New York as he goes to his New York home there at Trump Tower. Let's see. Where do I want to go next? Oh, yes, he put out a statement from his campaign, immediately hit everybody's email boxes. I noticed it came in literally seconds after the conviction was announced. I was just convicted in a rigged political witch hunt trial. I did nothing wrong, his campaign said in a fundraising email. They've raided my home, arrested me, took my mugshot, and now they've just convicted me. But with your support, At this moment in history, we will win back the White House and make America great again. So the reaction is coming in fast and furious. The vice presidential candidates, there have been people who've been talked to as running mates for Trump, have been saying things to the press and putting out statements, calling it absurd and a travesty of justice. Look, this is one of those days where one of the purposes of talk radio is to be cathartic. And if you have things you want to say, we will come to you from time to time. Phone lines are open on this topic at 615-737-9986. So to recap what has happened here today, the jury yesterday said that they wanted to ask some questions of the judge, and they wanted him to read back some of his instructions, and some of the testimony was read back this morning. After about a total of 12 hours of the process being underway and the deliberations beginning, it was getting close to the end of the workday, and the plan was that the jury was going to go home around 4:30 New York time, 3:30 Middle Tennessee time. But that time came and passed, and then came word that there was a verdict. That there was a verdict in the trial, not that they were hung up, but an actual verdict. And it took a few minutes to get the jury into the room and get the paperwork in order and get everything going. But then it came out very slowly, methodically, as these things do play themselves out in a court of law, that Donald Trump has been found guilty on all 34 counts and now becomes the first president in the history of the United States to become a convicted felon. An immediate appeal will be filed for the appellate court. There may even be an appeal directly to the Supreme Court. And in my opinion, there is much reversible error in this trial. This is not the final outcome, but it is the outcome for the moment. And the punishment phase is now set for July 11th, just 4 days before the Republican convention is scheduled to begin in Milwaukee on the 15th day of July. They will begin their procedure there. Again, there is nothing about this verdict that causes him to not be able to run for president. It is certainly within the boundaries of the Constitution to be a convicted felon and run for the office of the presidency. That is, there's no block of that. Ironically, he may not be able to vote for himself in the state of Florida because he will be at the time, unless this appeal is overturned, between now and November. There is this verdict. If it's overturned, it would change. But right now, as a convicted felon, he could not vote for himself in that election in the state of Florida. To the phone lines we go. I want to hear what's on your mind here today. Is this prosecution or is it persecution? 615-737-9986. An opportunity for you to get it off your chest. Thomas in Nashville. Thomas, you're on with Brian on the Drive. Your thoughts today?
Hey, Brian. My thoughts is, and I've been thinking about this for a while, ever since I heard it a couple years ago. Biden was asked, what if Trump decides to run again? And he responds, well, we'll just have to show through the legal system that won't be possible. Or it won't be possible for him to be president again through the justice system or through the legal system. And I can't find that clip anywhere on YouTube anymore, but do you remember seeing that?
I don't remember it, but I'm not surprised to hear that he said that at some point.
Yeah, he definitely said it. I remember at the time thinking that's outrageous. And then, clearly that's what they've done.
Yeah. Well, listen, thank you for the call, man. I appreciate it. A lot of people want to weigh in here. Dan in Watertown, you're on with Brian on the Drive. What do you say, Dan?
Yeah, I think, of course, I think like everybody else, that was a complete witch hunt. But I've got a theory that Biden is going to pardon him. Twofold. Number one, to prevent a civil uprising. Number two, to appeal to the independents. Oh, look, I'm the president, the compassionate president that will follow, even though he's convicted, you need to elect me.
So you think that he might do something radical? I listen. I doubt it. But I do think this. I don't think they understand how this is likely to play out. I mean, many Americans are going to be angered by this. I think many people have looked at this thing and felt like that this court was acting in sort of an illegal, extra legal way, and bringing the case and the way that the case was laid out. Even great criticism by a lot of really smart, legal analysts about the nature of the instructions to the jury and the way that whole thing was constructed. Many people have called that novel. Many people have said that it was inappropriate. Many lawyers, I mean, I saw Greta Van Susteren had put a statement saying she had never seen anything like it in her entire legal career. So I think there are, a lot of people are looking at this and saying maybe there is reversible error. Maybe the judge was a little too heavy with his thumb on the scale of justice. But one way or the other, as it stands now, a jury of his peers, I don't know if it really is a jury of his peers, but a jury has found him guilty on all 34 counts. Junior in Pulaski. Hello, Junior. You're up next on the drive. What do you say?
Well, the previous caller kind of stole my thunder. I had the same thought, that they're going to give him a pardon. Biden's going to do it, create some space between the DOJ that didn't want to pursue this months ago and say, it wasn't me. I didn't do it. It wasn't the political system. It's some rogue DA and a biased judge in New York kind of cleaning and washing his hands of it. So kudos to the caller just before me having the same thought.
All right, Junior, thank you for that. Tony in Spring Hill. Tony, what's your thought about this today?
Well, you're not going to believe this, but I have the same thought as the previous two callers. You think about it like this: Biden's poll numbers are in the trash. They're horrible. And if there was anything that would possibly boost his poll numbers, it would be to pardon Trump. I truly believe that would, it'd be a crazy political move, but what else in this day and age would boost his poll numbers? Everybody's unhappy with him. That, I think, would bring some people back to his side.
All right. Thank you for that, Tony. I appreciate it. Marie in Nashville. Marie, your thoughts today on the news that former President Trump, has been convicted on 34 counts of trying to conceal the payments with the Stormy Daniels matter. Your thoughts?
Absolutely a disgrace. However, I don't agree with the callers before. I don't think there is a soft-hearted, nice thing ever, empathy about Biden. One thing I just want to say, our country right now has our leader. We have a leader that is asleep. We are in the most dangerous times we have ever been in history. Donald Trump will succeed. I believe he will become our president, and I have all the faith in him, and we just have to stick together, get out and vote, and let him take this country in the direction that he knows it needs to go, and we will be more powerful than ever before. We have to stick together, and he will succeed no matter what. And you know what? What happened today, it's kind of Donald Trump style. Nothing he does is normal. And if he becomes president, a convicted felon president, this is just kind of like the way that Donald Trump runs anyway. And that's all I have to say. I love him. I love our country. And he absolutely has our back, and he will take care of us. Thank you.
All right, Marie, thank you for that. Listen, we'll take some more calls a little bit later. If you're on the line, stay there. But we need to take a break right now at 23 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock. Grace Point Healthcare is the standard for affordable, comprehensive, and convenient medicine. How? Well, as a direct pay provider, your health care is delivered without the red tape of an insurer's guidelines. Smart Care plans make it even more affordable. They start at only $69 a month, and for that, you get a lot. You get free office visits and free basic labs for the entire year. Grace Point identifies and treats the root causes of conditions, not just the symptoms, utilizing a comprehensive and yet functional approach. And by usually seeing you the same day or the next day, you're treated at your convenience. So Grace Point Healthcare, affordable, comprehensive, and convenient medicine delivered the old-fashioned way. They're located on Main Street in Franklin. And here's the number for you. You might want to write it down, 615-599-6868. That's 599-6868 to set up your appointment.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Matt Murphy for Members Nutrition. I want to tell you about the Members Nutrition difference, and I want to encourage you to go over to the Members Nutrition website. Number one, they believe at Members Nutrition that they can sell vitamins and supplements at a lower cost point, and they're doing it every single day at membersnutrition.com. Number two, they want to make these products right here in the United States of America, not from some overseas company, and they do that every single day. I encourage you to go to membersnutrition.com. You'll get 50% off your purchase price at checkout. You don't have to put in any codes. Just go to membersnutrition.com. Once again, membersnutrition.com.
Former President Trump found guilty today on all 34 counts of falsifying business records. That sentencing set for July 11th. Crime in Tennessee. And we got another verdict in a murder case in Idaho. We'll tell you about it. 5:30 Super Talk, then at 9/7 WTN.
Yes, it's been a very eventful day in New York. The former president has said that the verdict, the trial was rigged. He said it was a disgrace. His son has used harsher language than that, using language that I cannot repeat on the radio on his Twitter feed or his X feed. And we understand that that Bragg the district attorney for Manhattan, Alvin Bragg, he has put out a statement saying, today a jury found Donald J. Trump guilty on all the 34 felony counts, and he is expected, perhaps at any moment, to come to the microphones and have something to say about it, taking his victory lap. The sentencing has been set for July 11th, and that is just 4 days before the Republican National Convention is set to begin on the 15th of July. So that's going to be very interesting. So we'll be watching very closely throughout the day to see reaction. When we come back, I'm going to tell you about a poll that came out earlier today that showed that this verdict, even though it's not particularly a welcome a series of events, probably won't have much impact on this presidential race at all if what the people have said to the pollsters is true. There's a lot to unpack here, and we'll be taking your calls throughout the day because clearly this is something that we want to give you the opportunity to comment on. If you're on the line, I'm going to beg your indulgence to stay on the line. And when we clear off some of these calls, the phone lines will have room for other people to call in at 615-737-9986. But to recap, a jury returned a verdict late in the day. They were just about scheduled to go home. They did not go home. They came back and returned a verdict of guilty on all 34 counts that had been leveled against the former president. Although many people have had real criticism of the way this trial was conducted, how the judge handled himself in this proceedings, he is, for the moment, a convicted felon, the first president in the history of the United States to be a convicted felon. And we'll talk about that and much, much more and hear your thoughts as well coming up in the next half hour. Right now, we need to take a break for the news. It is 5:30 on Super Talk 99.7.
30 minutes after the hour of 5 o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top story. 77 degrees in Nashville. Traffic, weather on the way in 5 minutes. Former President Trump found guilty today on all 34 counts of falsifying business records in his criminal hush money trial. The former president spoke to reporters after the verdict.
It's okay. I'm fighting for our country. I'm fighting for our Constitution. Our whole country is being rigged right now. This was done by the Biden administration in order to wound or hurt an opponent, a political opponent, and I think it's just a disgrace. And we'll keep fighting. We'll fight till the end, and we'll win because our country's gone to hell. We don't have the same country anymore. We have a divided mess.
Sentencing will be set for July 11th. Prison time very unlikely, as this is Donald Trump's first time being convicted of a felony. It's the lowest level felony in New York, a Class E felony. And Donald Trump's attorney, Todd Blanche, says there's no way the jury could have reached this verdict without the testimony of Michael Cohen. Now here in Tennessee, crime. News to report that an Ashland City man was arrested for solicitation of a minor. The TBI says that 20-year-old Keith Choate was communicating with who he thought was a 14-year-old girl, but was actually an undercover agent. Officials say that Choate allegedly sent explicit photos and asked her to send some back. He's being held in the Cheatham County Jail on a $50,000 bond. And another verdict reached today, with this one in Idaho, involving the second half of a so-called doomsday couple who allegedly killed their family members over apocalyptic beliefs. It took the jury 6 hours of deliberations. Alex Stone.
An Idaho jury delivering its verdicts on 8 counts for the murders of Chad Daybell's ex-wife and his second wife's 7 and 16-year-old children. Guilty on all counts, including murder, conspiracy, and insurance fraud. Prosecutors say Chad Daybell and his wife, Lori Vallow Daybell, who was convicted last year, killed the three over money and apocalyptic beliefs. The death penalty phase of the trial will now get underway.
And that is the latest news, weather, traffic on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
The Guaranteed Offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lock boxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
You know, there are no pills or spinal creams that can magically open up your spinal disc and take the pressure off your nerves. No, it's not the way it works. You have really only a couple of choices. If you have back pain, you can undergo surgery, or you can undergo non-invasive spinal decompression. Now, I chose non-surgical spinal decompression at the Wellness Institute of Nashville. I had problems in my neck, had problems in my lower back, and it solved both of those problems. Their state-of-the-art facilities has the latest high-tech equipment that offers the latest non-surgical procedures. And because getting better is so important, Dr. Mitchell, Dr. Kevin Mitchell, and Dr. Ashley are offering half-off spinal decompression treatment and half off the use of the KT knee machine, which is like spinal decompression for the knee. It sort of gently elongates the knee so that you can get the healing therapy deep within the joint. Now, if you're a new patient, what a deal we have for you. Your exam, your consultation, your first treatment is only $23. I'm Brian Wilson, and I put my stamp of approval on the Wellness Institute of Nashville. Call them today at 615-246-5009 and learn more at painisbad.com.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lock boxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
$37 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. The breaking news of the day, if you're just getting in your car, heading home, and you're unaware of what may have happened, Donald Trump has been found guilty on all 34 counts that were leveled against him by a jury in New York. The sentencing is set for July 11th, just 4 days before the Republican National Convention. There's a lot of reaction, and our phone lines are open at 615-737-9986. If you get a busy signal, just come back when we have cleared a few of the calls, and some lines will be open. But this is a day where a lot of people want to express themselves. On the website, The Drudge Report, they have in big red letters said guilty, 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 guilty 34 times across the top of their banner headline. And there is a lot of reaction. But I wanted, just before we take a few calls, to sort of repeat something that we talked about earlier, and that is that there has been some polling done in advance of this verdict to try to find out, how voters will react to this. And by and large, it seems you'd have to say that voters have told the pollsters that it will make no difference whatsoever into how they will plan to cast their ballot in the coming election. Let me read through that story, and then we'll take some more of your calls. A new poll released Thursday had some positive news for former President Donald Trump's in case he is found guilty, which he has been. An NPR PBS NewsHour Marist national poll showed 67% of registered voters nationally wouldn't be swayed at all by a guilty verdict against Trump. 15% said it would make them more likely to vote for him. Another 17 said the guilty verdict would make them less likely to vote for Trump. So those two numbers sort of cancel each other out. But the vast majority of voters have said that they would not consider it at all when they cast their ballot. Among Republicans, 25% said a guilty verdict would make them more likely to vote for the former president. Only 7% of Democrats said a guilty verdict would make them more likely to vote for Trump. 27% said it would make them less likely to vote. But among coveted independent voters, 15% said a guilty verdict would make them less likely to vote. Would make them more likely to vote for Trump. 11% said it would make them less likely. Again, largely when you look at the big numbers. In contrast, 76% of all voters said a not guilty verdict would not affect their vote. And so, does it have any impact? Well, I mean, time and time again, we have seen sort of this counterintuitive reaction by America when something bad happens to Donald Trump. It tends to work in his favor. I mean, Donald Trump at one point said, "You're going to indict me all the way to the White House." So I'm not sure it will have an impact. I think a lot of people look at this and say, this is, political in nature, not a prosecution, but a persecution, a weaponization of the law. And I think they see it for what it is. I would say that the jury in New York City probably not in sync with the average American across the country. In fact, let's listen. Let's hear what a few average Americans have to say about this right now. Our phone lines are open at 615-737-9986. Steve in Cookville, you're up next on The Drive. What is your reaction to the verdict today by the court in New York and the jury in New York?
Brian, not only did they convict Donald J. Trump, my president, they convicted me and every one of us in this country who supports that man. And I am just devastated. I didn't think in 84 years that I would ever see this day. And I have shed a tear here in my chair this afternoon. And I'm telling you what, we're now becoming the United States of Venezuela. And I look for all the grocery stores in the morning to have a sale on their bananas.
All right, Steve, thank you for that. Robin in Spring Hill, you're up next on The Drive. What do you say, Robin?
Hey, first of all, I would like to see maybe Donald Trump can do this. All them jurors should be investigated and see if they got any deposits in their bank account. I would check that out because surely they can't be that stupid. And also, as the daughter of a 20-year veteran and the sister of another 20-year veteran, both have passed on. This is not what they gave their blood for. We just had Memorial Day, and you look at the hundreds of thousands of headstones of our veterans, and I'm ashamed of our government. I'm ashamed of it. I'm ashamed of what our country has become. We are heading for third world status in a big hurry.
All right. Thank you for that, Robin. I appreciate it. I mean, very strong opinions today. And you can tell that for people who support Donald Trump, you are dealing with some emotion today. Some of it is anger. Some of it is disappointment. Some of it is other things. So, I mean, clearly an emotional reaction to what has happened in New York today. Lindsay in Pleasant Shade, you're on up with Brian with The Drive. Your thoughts about the events of the day.
Hey, Brian. I put my feelers out for you and popped the news into several different chat rooms that I frequent, and the Canadians are cheering The UK is pretty neutral, and what I find in most of the American chat rooms is 70% of them don't even want to talk about it, and the ones that do there are like very few conservatives. It's a pretty woke room in general, but they all think justice has been done. They called him a clown president, and even some on our F&M chat here, which is very conservative, seem to feel that justice has been done. Hey, the jury made the verdict. And I don't think they understand the facts of the political nature and the unfairness behind this whole trial.
All right, Lindsay, thank you for that. James in Nashville, you're up next on the drive. And by the way, we have some phone lines open now at 615-737-9986. James, what's your thought?
Hey, Brian. I'm 34. I'm a black guy, and I'm a Democrat. And lately, I've just been noticing, like, this is crazy. We sit around and talk about fascism as far as Democrats. Fascism, we're going to start, Trump's going to start World War III, blah, 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 blah. But it seems like the Democrats is doing it. I mean, I don't understand. We went 4 years. We had the Mueller trials. We had everything else. Democrats saying, "Oh well, we're going to get Trump. We're going to do this. We're going to do that." And I was 100% with it. I'm like, okay, yeah, we're going to get him. We're going to get him. We're going to get him. But 4 years later, 2 years later after the election, it seems like the Democrats is more or less fascist than the Republicans are. And I'm a Democrat, but I have arguments with my family all the time. So lately, I've been being called a Republican. And today, it just seems like I've seen the headlines in the news about Russia, Ukraine using weapons from NATO and Russia. It seems more or less to me that Americans and NATO is going to start World War III. And on top of that, to me, it seems like that the Democrats is more or less trying to persecute their political opponents than the Republicans. And
so
I'm a Democrat.
why do you think you're suggesting that you feel like that your opinions about the political parties that you've long supported, that you no longer support them as strongly? Is that what I'm getting?
I'm not saying I don't know what to support now because, like I said, I was raised a Democrat. I mean, my parents Democrats, everybody Democrats. And as the older I get, I'm 35 now, and as the older I get, I'm starting to, I try to look on the outside in, and lately it just seems like they're crazy. They're insane. They're pushing all type of agendas on our kids. I have 3 kids. And I have 3 boys, and I don't want my boys to be learning about transgenderism and all that other type of stuff. I don't want my kids to know about that. And lately,
we keep hearing that many black voters are now moving toward Trump. Are you one of them then?
I don't know,
but at least you're thinking about it, right?
Yes, I'm definitely.
All right, listen, James, thank you for the call. I got a lot of people stacked up here. Tim in Linville, you're up next on the drive. What do you say, Tim?
Hey, thanks a lot for taking the call. Anger is not even a strong enough word, but I don't want you to have to use the dump button. But we have watched these people push lies and smears and double standards on Donald Trump for 7.5 years. And now you've got roughly 14 people in Manhattan that are trying to just continue that story. And if this was a schoolyard bully, I bet there's a lot of people like me that, you don't want to say, well, we want violence. But if this was a schoolyard, we would have stepped in and smacked the bully by now. This is absolutely ridiculous. And somehow there's no vessel for us to stop this other than vote. And then, of course, we had the last election, and we know there's discrepancies there, but of course, then you get the double standard of, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist, and at some point, they're going to poke the bear way too much.
All right, listen, Tim, thank you for that. I want to pause just for a moment from our phone calls to hear a little bit of what Alvin Bragg is now saying in the Manhattan, outside that Manhattan courtroom taking a bit of a victory lap. Here is Alvin Bragg, the DA who brought the case.
Involving jurists, local and state electeds, public servants, and others. I want to thank this phenomenal prosecution team, embodying the finest traditions of this office: professionalism, integrity, dedication, and service. They are model public servants, and I am proud and humbled to serve side by side with them. The 12 everyday jurors vowed to make a decision based on the evidence and the law, and the evidence and the law alone. Their deliberations led them to a unanimous conclusion beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant, Donald J. Trump, is guilty of 34 counts of falsifying business records in the first degree to conceal a scheme to corrupt the 2016 election. And while this defendant may be unlike any other in American history, we arrived at this trial and ultimately today at this verdict in the same manner as every other case that comes through the courtroom doors, by following the facts and the law and doing so without fear or favor. I want to conclude by expressing deep gratitude to the NYPD and the officers of the Office of Court Administration for securing the courthouse, all of our safety.
Well, that's Alvin Bragg taking a little victory lap in New York, saying that he agreed with the verdict and making his comments that you just heard there. We're going to take a break. If you're on the phone line, hang on. We're going to take more calls throughout the evening. Right now, 50 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock.
Hey, it's Dan Mandis, and I am so glad that California Closets has fixed my closet catastrophe. After exact measuring and planning, they came over and got to work. Yeah, once it was all plotted out on their 3D CAD system, the pieces are measured, cut, and precisely installed into my space. It was clean, fast, and professional, and above all, my new closets look and function great. Now, this was my dormer, and now this is my new dormer thanks to California Closets. Look at all of this added space for shirts and shoes, you name it, and it is cut so precisely, simply amazing. And my old closet that has now been reborn as the ultimate in style and functionability, making the best use of the space that I had. They can work on just about anything: bedrooms, garages, home offices, closets, pantries, and so much more. Find them online, CaliforniaClosets.com, and see what they can do for you. You can schedule a free design consultation. Mention my name, CaliforniaClosets.com.
Donald Trump found guilty on all 34 counts, a teenager dead after a shooting in Bellevue last night. We hear from Metro Police spokesman Don Aaron on the matter, and Tennessee Task Force sending crews to help the Lone Star State with recent severe weather. 6 o'clock, Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right, Mac, just a heads up, we may be getting to you a little bit late here because on the Newsmaker hotline right now, we have Senator Marsha Blackburn on the line to react to the events of the day. Senator Blackburn, thank you for joining us and being available on short notice. Your reaction to the verdict by the jury that Donald Trump was guilty on all 34 counts.
Brian, I was in the middle of one of my county meetings when the verdict came in, and someone said, "This is just crossing the wire." Everybody in that room they were just appalled with this, that there would be a guilty verdict on 34 counts. They know that this is a sham trial. They know that this is a judge who had decided he was going to find him guilty. They know that this is a DA that campaigned on saying, "I'm going to get President Donald Trump." People are fed up with this. This is the weaponization of our judicial system. They are sick and tired of two tiers of justice. This is one of the reasons that Donald Trump is going to be elected president on November 5th. And you'll see us take the U.S. Senate. We'll keep the House. We'll keep the supermajorities in our state House and state Senate in Tennessee. And I think that people are going to rise up like they have not in a long time, because they know full well, if you can do this, if you can weaponize the government against a former president, if you can exercise two tiers of justice, and if you can do this to him, they certainly can and will do it to you.
The punishment phase of this trial is now scheduled to start on July 11th, which would be just 4 days from the kickoff of the GOP National Convention in Milwaukee. That seems to be suspiciously politically timed.
Of course, it's politically timed. The whole thing has been to keep him off the campaign trail. And what they're going to try to do is have him miss the convention. It is not going to work. If he has to come in by video, you're going to see people more energized than ever, because they realize the serious nature of weaponizing the government against your political opponents. That is something that they do in third world countries. We do not do that in the United States of America. And I think I've talked to so many friends who are Democrats and independents. They didn't vote for Donald Trump. They had not planned to vote for Donald Trump, but because of the serious nature of abandoning the rule of law, the serious nature of abandoning equal justice under the law, they are voting for Donald Trump.
Your thoughts, what would you say to people? We've had a lot of callers call in here this evening, and we'll be taking more calls in the next hour. And there is a real anger among some of the people. I mean, real demonstrable anger. What would you say to those people who are experiencing that anger right now?
And you know what? The anger, that is what I saw in the county meeting that I was holding when the news came in. It was anger. And these are not political people in nature. It was people that are in government service, that are leading county organizations. And it was an anger. And to these individuals, I say, channel that anger, channel that disgust. Be sure you're registered, your neighbors are registered. Be certain that they are planning to go and vote on November 5th. Be certain that they are paying attention to who is running for office. And, you know, I want them voting for me on November 5th, because I'm going to be standing with President Trump. I'm going to be supporting President Trump. I am going to be supporting that America First agenda. And people need to realize this is serious. what they are. And, Brian, you were in D.C. and kind of saw this transition. During the Clinton administration, what did they start doing? They started having 2 tiers of justice, 2 tiers of access, and they would weaponize the government at times against political opponents. We saw more of it in the Obama years, and now it is like they are on steroids. They've become very bold, very brazen, and they are, you don't see Biden and Hunter being held accountable for going out here and making deals and the accusations that are against the Bidens and Biden Incorporated and the Biden crime family. But what you do see is scrutiny at a level like we have never seen before, an accusation at a level like we have never seen before against President Donald Trump. And the sin he committed was beating Hillary Clinton. Nobody was supposed to beat the grandmama. And she was supposed to be the big mama that was going to come in and she was going to save the Democrat Party. And it did not happen. People voted for President Donald Trump. And I think what you are seeing right now, there's going to be such a backlash to this. I believe in the goodness of the American people. I believe in the goodness of Tennesseans. And you know what? I think people have had it on this.
All right. Well, listen, I appreciate you calling in on very short notice. Much appreciated. We're getting to the news a little bit late, but now it's time for the news at 6:03 on Super Talk 99.7.
Now 6:04, I'm Mac Maury with your top story. 78 degrees. Got a traffic report and a weather forecast in 5 minutes. Guilty on all 34 counts. That's the verdict a New York jury handed to former President Trump in his criminal hush money trial. It makes Donald Trump the first former U.S. president to be convicted of a crime. He'll be sentenced in July, but Dan Abrams says whatever punishments he's handed, Trump will probably not serve it for a while.
First, he'll do an interview with the probation department. That is typical in any case. You have a meeting where you talk to he's going to have this meeting with a probation officer because the probation department then recommends what sentence they think the person ought to get. And then number two is a sentencing happen weeks, months ahead. There's going to be appeals in this case, et cetera. So I think that the actual serving of the sentence, whatever it is probably some time away.
And this is the lowest level felony in New York, a Class E felony, so it is unlikely that he would be sentenced to prison time for this case. And Donald Trump's attorney, Todd Blanche, says there's no way the jury could have reached this verdict without the testimony of Michael Cohen. Here in Tennessee, a teenage boy dead, his teenage sister recovering in the hospital after a shooting at a park in Bellevue. Metro Police say it happened around 8 o'clock last night at Red Caboose Park. Metro Police spokesman Don Aaron from yesterday night.
A fight broke out between females this evening in the parking lot of Red Caboose Park. Other teens joined the fight. During the fight, a gun was produced. Shots were fired. 2 teenagers, 16 and 13, sister and brother, were hit. The 16-year-old girl has been taken to the hospital. She's going to survive her injuries. The 13-year-old was hit multiple times, rushed to the hospital. He has now been pronounced deceased.
And the 13-year-old boy has been identified as Aiden Hayes. His 16-year-old sister was able to give officers a name and a description of the shooter. Officers spotted an individual who matched the suspect's description walking along Highway 70 about a half mile from the park. The individual has been identified as 15-year-old DeAnthony Osasosifo, and he's been charged with criminal homicide. Don Aaron said that most of those people involved in that fight were middle schoolers, and a lot of those at the scene being interviewed. And the Tennessee Task Force 2 has deployed crews to Bryan, Texas, which saw flooding and damage from recent severe storms. Nashville Fire Department reports the deployment came at the request of Texas officials. Tennessee crews will help Texas with water rescues, storm damage assistance, and other emergency responses as needed. The storms have left hundreds of Texans without power on top of devastating damage. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
The Guaranteed Offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lockboxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
.608 on Super Talk 99.7. Good evening. Brian Wilson in the chair all the way till 7 o'clock, where we'll be replaced by Mark Levin, who will, I wouldn't miss that show for all the money in the world. That's going to be quite a show today. As you have heard, no doubt by now, the breaking news that former President Donald Trump has been convicted on all 34 counts of falsifying business records, allegedly in a scheme to illegally influence the 2016 elections. And there is much reaction. A new development, we now have been told that Donald Trump will hold a press conference at Trump Tower tomorrow at 11 a.m. The judge basically sent the jury home, and Donald Trump came out and had some comments. We'll play them out again for you in case you have missed them. And the sentencing is now scheduled for July 11th, just 4 days before the Republican National Convention. You heard just a moment ago from Senator Marsha Blackburn, and many people are weighing in. Jim Jordan says this was a travesty of justice. He's the House Judiciary Committee chairman. House Republican Conference Chairwoman Elise Stefanik trashed what she called a rigged verdict. South Carolina Republican Chairman, I'm sorry, my page keeps updating. Republican Chairman and former RNC co-chair Drew McKissick called the jury's decision what we traditionally called in so-called banana republics. Trump earlier this spring effectively pushed McKissick out of leadership roles of the National Party in favor of his own team, but he's still very much in the president's court. The governor of Texas, this is a sham show trial. The kangaroo court will never stand on appeal. And then the question is being asked by legal analysts, could he do time in prison? I would say, my personal opinion seems that is unlikely for two reasons. First of all, first offense, and normally it's the Class E felony is the lowest tier of felony charges in the state, punishable by up to 4 years in prison. So with 34 counts, you could rack up a real prison sentence, but it seems unlikely that would happen. I think this judge knows that that would be an outcome that would backfire on them, but who knows? I mean, just how crazy this is all going to be. I think that what I'm reading here, it says from Associated Press, it's unclear to what extent the judge may factor in the political and logistical complexities of jailing a former president. And I think that is something to think about. Other punishments would include a fine or probation. It's possible the judge would allow Trump to avoid serving any punishment until after he exhausts all his appeals, and there will be an appeal. There's no doubt about that. The conviction does not bar Trump from continuing his campaign. Trump's daughter-in-law, Laura Trump, who serves as co-chair of the Republican National Committee, said in a Fox News interview that Thursday, if Trump is convicted and sentenced home to home confinement, he would do virtual things, virtual rallies, etc. We'll have to play the hand that is dealt, according to an interview transcript. I think we're getting palpable anger is what we're picking up from our conversations with people on the phone lines. I want to replay, Chris, if I could, the president's comments just moments after the jury came back with that verdict. He stepped into the echoey hallway outside the courtroom, and this is what Donald Trump had to say to the American people.
This was a disgrace. This was a rigged trial by a conflicted judge who was corrupt. It's a rigged trial, a disgrace. They wouldn't give us a venue change. We were at 5% or 6% in this district, in this area. This was a rigged, disgraceful trial. But the real verdict is going to be November 5th by the people. And they know what happened here, and everybody knows what happened here. You have a so-respect DA and the whole thing. We didn't do a thing wrong. I'm a very innocent man, and it's okay. I'm fighting for our country. I'm fighting for our Constitution. Our whole country is being rigged right now. This was done by the Biden administration in order to wound or hurt an opponent, a political opponent. And I think it's just a disgrace. And we'll keep fighting. We'll fight till the end, and we'll win, because our country's gone to hell. We don't have the same country anymore. We have a divided mess. We're a nation in decline, serious decline. Millions and millions of people pouring into our country right now from prisons and from mental institutions, terrorists, and they're taking over our country. We have a country that's in big trouble. But this was a rigged decision right from day one, with a conflicted judge who should have never been allowed to try this case, never. And we will fight for our Constitution. This is long from over. Thank you very much.
And with that, he departed the courtroom and went home to Trump Tower, his residence while in New York City. He, again, is going to hold a press conference tomorrow at 11 a.m. To sort of follow up on those comments. We've been taking your comments here at 615-737-9986, and all the lines are stacked up right now, but as we start to go through some of these calls, the lines will open up, and we want to hear what your thoughts on this. Again, we've heard palpable anger. I would say that I think Senator Marsha Blackburn had it right. If you are angry, and many people are angry about this verdict, they don't think that this was a fair trial, more persecution than prosecution, an example of weaponizing the legal system that many people have seen. There's some really, truly bizarre things about this trial and the way it was carried out. There's no doubt about that. All the legal analysts have agreed on that point. But if you're angry, channel that anger. Take that anger and motivate you to make sure that everybody you know is registered to vote and that they cast their ballots. And so take it to the streets in a positive way by getting involved in the whole process and making sure that everybody that you can talk to understands the importance of casting a ballot in this coming election. To the phone lines we go. Rachel in Manchester. Rachel, you're up with Brian on the drive. Tell me how you react to this and what's on your mind tonight.
Well, I'll tell you, I've never been so sad as when they gave that verdict. I almost cried. But when you have a group of people that vote for somebody who's already said that he's going to prosecute the President of the United States, that in itself should have made a change of venue. I don't think it would have been the same way had it not been in New York. I think he's innocent. And I think all this anger, I just hope and pray it's not channeled in a bad way.
Well,
We've just got to make sure he gets elected. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the thing to do here is to take the anger and channel it in a positive way, to do something that can make a real difference, to get involved in the political process in a way that perhaps people have not in the past. Rachel, nice thoughts. Thank you for calling in. Craig in Chapel Hill, you're up next on the drive. What do you say, Craig?
Yes, sir. How you doing today? Pretty sad day for our country.
Okay.
I just wanted to say that, things like this, when we look at our president, things happen like this on an everyday basis to the ordinary individual when they get into systems and they're built crookedly. And, we don't have the backing of money. We don't have the backing of power and things like that. So it goes to show you when you vote for the right person, make sure on how they vote. Today's a sad day for our president to be treated like that. We can hold him up on a pedestal. I guess he'll be our Nelson Mandela. And my personal opinion, I think Mike Johnson and the rest of the Republicans in the House and then on the Senate side, they need to shut it down. They need to come to their districts and they need to rally. We need to get people out there and, like you said, take a positive note. And we need to get people to the polls and get this thing changed over to where we can get it fixed. But also on our side is we've got to kick a lot of the so-called Republicans out that do not want to do anything. And that's what makes me very upset. And so I just wanted to say, hey, we got to keep our head up. We got to stay focused. And, we know the president kind of got shafted today. And we know that the Democrats are weaponized the system. And, it's a shame is there's Democrats out there that are good people, but they literally are bowing their head and sticking their head in the sand and watch this happen. That's not right.
All right. Thank you so much for your comments. There's some thoughtful things there, Craig. Sean in Chapel Hill, you're up next on the drive. What do you say, Sean?
Hey, Brian.
Hey.
Hey, my big focus is let's do exactly what the scripture says to do. We can be angry and sin not. So we can be angry about all this, but please don't do anything stupid like some of the guys did on January the 6th. Let's just keep level heads and protest in the right, proper, correct ways. But let's please do what Jesus said do. Be angry, but don't do anything stupid about it. That's all I got to say, brother. Let's keep God in this and keep God, get God back in our country like it's supposed to be.
All right, Sean. Thank you for that thought. Ryan in Ashland City. Hello, Ryan. You're up next on the drive. You're thinking today upon the news that Donald Trump has been convicted on all 34 counts.
Yes, sir. And I would like to say we've had a lot. You've had a lot of great callers today. I had one question. Is there a way, like your last caller said, to peacefully protest to where we can write our representatives or our congressmen to get Joe Biden off the ballot in our state, even though I realize that would only work with red states, but is that a possibility?
I don't think that's a possibility. I don't know that is something that could be done. And quite frankly, I don't think you need to do that. Just between you and me, I think my personal opinion is if past is prologue, you look at what has happened every time somebody has thrown something in the direction of Donald Trump, whether it's another indictment or this or that or the other, everything that is thrown at him, the reaction has been, that Trump gets more support, not less. I just read a story a moment ago that said that, they've been out there polling people, and by and large, even if convicted today as he was, the people who were contacted by pollsters said it would largely make no difference in the way they would cast their ballot. So I think that people are seeing through this, and I think honestly they have made Trump a sympathetic figure, and I think honestly if you look at everything that has happened, I believe this with every fiber of my being. When you look at what has happened, every time something's been thrown his direction, his numbers didn't go down; they went up. And I'm reading a story here that says that you can't even make a donation right now on his campaign website because the campaign website is so overwhelmed. People are reacting not only with anger, but by pulling out their wallets. And apparently to the point where the system can't even handle the number of people who are trying to make donations to Donald Trump right now. So, I think there's a positive way to channel the emotions that you're feeling right now. Listen, we have to take a commercial break here. We have a few phone lines open. I want to keep talking to you. I want to hear what's on your mind. 615-737-9986, 22 past the hour now.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lock boxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
Uh, 26 minutes now past the hour. We're taking your calls, your reaction to the news that Donald Trump has been found guilty. A lot of you are angry. A lot of you are emotional. A lot of you are expressing very, very passionate thoughts here. Let's start with Jim in Mount Juliet. Jim, you're on with Brian on the drive. Your thought here.
Hi, Brian.
Go ahead.
I've been searching for the term to describe how I'm feeling right now. And the best term I can come up with is ashamed. I'm a former police officer, and I'm a retired attorney. I never did criminal work, but I've been involved in enough trials to know a rigged trial when I see one. And if any of your listeners out there have this gut feeling that something was wrong with that whole proceeding, they can't exactly put their finger on it, I urge them to go to Fox News and watch the legal experts on Fox News who explain it in a very calm, dispassionate, and reasoned manner. And one of them said it best: the way this judge fashioned his evidentiary rulings and the way he fashioned his jury instructions was nothing short of a roadmap to conviction. They had no choice. They kept stuff out that would have worked for the defense. They let stuff in that shouldn't have been let in that worked for the prosecution. There was no alternative to this. And everybody's talking about that this is going to be overturned on appeal. They don't care. They got what they wanted. An opposing candidate as a convicted felon. They don't care if it's overturned in 6 months or 6 years or whenever. The damage is done.
Do you think it's real damage, though, or does it? How will it play with the electorate?
Well, whatever damage is affected, it's done.
Yeah.
Okay? They have their target. They have their talking points. Okay? That's a very good question, and I don't know. But here's what I do think. I've been, since Gore v. Bush, I've been watching the Democrats overplay their hand.
Yep.
Okay? When Trump beat Hillary in 2016, and Hillary started, and all of her cohorts started with all of their nonsense that they started with, I sat down and said then, they're going at this too hard. They're overplaying their hand. And I think this was a textbook example of overplaying your hand. And let me clarify one thing real quickly. Okay. I don't like Donald Trump. I support his candidacy. I voted for him twice. I'll vote for him again this fall. I don't like him, but I don't elect a president based on who I like. I elect a president on who's going to do the job I want them to do, and that is Donald J. Trump.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there because it's time for the news, but more of your calls after the news, and we will replay that interview that we had, a very passionate interview with Senator Marsha Blackburn toward the end of our show here, in case you missed it. You don't want to miss it. It was a humdinger. Right now, it's 6:30, time for the news. We'll be back with more of your thoughts right after that. Big news day, big news day. And if you're just getting into your car, and I can't imagine you haven't heard this by now, but Donald Trump has been convicted on all 34 counts. The punishment phase will begin just 4 days before the Republican National Convention on July 11th. And so it's a real question as to what would happen. I mean, can you imagine a scenario where the judge put him in jail so he couldn't attend the convention? I mean, it's possible. I mean, there are so many things that are possible here. But, I would think that probably that there will not be any jail time, but he will be a convicted felon, the first time any president in the history of this country has been convicted of a crime. Pretty interesting development there. I'm reading Byron York's snap assessment of all this, and let me read a little bit of that, and we'll take more of your calls at 615-737-9986. Does a guilty verdict change the race? Former President Donald Trump supporters, nearly all of the Republican base, plus millions more who see Trump as a better choice for the White House than President Joe Biden, will see the guilty verdict against Trump in New York as a deeply unfair and deeply politicized affair. But he adds, Alvin Bragg, the Democrat who was elected district attorney in Manhattan on a vow to pursue Trump, had the authority to bring the case. Juan Merchan, the Biden donor who served as a judge in the case, had the authority to run the trial. And the jury drove from a borough of New York that went for Biden 84.5% to 14.5% in the 2020 presidential election, had the authority to convict Trump. I would add, but was it fair? The trial is over, he says. Ahead lies an appeal, which many experts think they will have a good chance of overturning the verdict, but that won't happen until next year, when the 2024 election is long over. In the immediate future, Trump will be handled as a new convict under supervision, facing sentencing in perhaps 3 months. Many commentators suggest it's unlikely he will go to jail, but the fact is he has been convicted on 34 felony counts, each carrying a maximum prison sentence of 4 years, if the judge wants to go that route. The political fallout of the verdict already underway, writes Byron York. Political observers have long known that one of the greatest benefits for the trial is for Democrats to have the ability to refer to Trump as a convicted felon. That's already started. But the bigger question, he writes, is what will happen in the minds of voters who might be inclined to vote for him but are disturbed by the conviction. Nearly all Republicans believe Trump was unfairly pursued and unfairly prosecuted. They have said a long time that it doesn't matter what the verdict is, they will support Trump. They put the Manhattan prosecution in the long line of what they see as unfair treatment of Trump, beginning with the Russia investigation. For them, it isn't anything new and certainly won't change the determination to vote for Trump. Indeed, it might energize them to support Trump even more fervently. But a number of polls have shown that a small number of potential voters, it's not clear how many, say they would not vote for Trump if he were a convicted felon. Well, they carry through on that now. In 2023, many observers thought indictments would harm or perhaps sink Trump's political hopes, and it didn't happen. In fact, during this trial, I'll add, his numbers have gone up. Now we have to see what the impact of a conviction will have. My prediction is it will have none. It may backfire on Democrats if passed as prologue. In the meantime, the campaign goes on, writes York. Unless Merchan throws Trump in jail, the former president will still be able to campaign, still be able to communicate, still be able to offer the voters a return to a governance that millions view as more successful than Biden's. Now we will see whether Trump's new Democratic bestowed nickname, convicted felon, has any impact on the 2024 race. To the phone lines we go. Your thoughts. We're going to take a few of your thoughts here, and then I want to replay the comments of Marsha Blackburn a few moments ago. But let's go to Dennis in Nolensville, who's been very patiently waiting on the phone to have his say. Dennis, you're up with Brian on the drive. Your thoughts.
Brian, thank you. First of all, a previous caller, Sean, had some comments about, I think, rather disparaging comments about January 6th. I was in D.C. at January 6th, and it was a love fest until we got to the Capitol, and the people who I saw what was happening at that time, and they said, "This is not us. We're leaving." And that crowd dissipated.
And it dwindled down to the very few who were, I don't know, enticed or whatever. But that's something else. Today, this is a test of the newly reformed Republican National Committee, because it's time to lead. Now is a time when, in my opinion, they should be organizing rallies without Trump as necessary to get people together and in a show of strength in their own local areas. And they could do that. People are right now, they're emotionally high and ready to do this and show through the news and through our mutual cooperation, holding hands in this issue. We are strong and we are large.
All right, Dennis, thank you so much for the call. Greatly appreciate it. Moving on, Jerry in Murfreesboro. You're up next on the drive. Hello, Jerry.
Okay, well, get the button ready, because
we're not going to have to use the button. Let's stay civil here. Go ahead.
I know, I'll try, but I'm livid. This is tyranny at its worst. King George probably never even did anything like this, and we owe our posterity and our founders to make sure that this tyranny does not stand. And what if he spends so much as a minute in prison? You want to start off peacefully? Why don't we quit paying our taxes then? How about that? Every single one of us that loves freedom, we stop paying our taxes. We'll see what they can do about that. I'm beyond furious with this. This is just tyranny at its worst. And if we don't do something about it, we deserve to be slaves. We deserve the tyranny that we get then. That's all I got to say.
All right, Jerry, thank you. David in Goodlettsville, you're up next on the drive. What do you say? Quickly.
Hey, so my opinion is this, that when the Supreme Court actually takes the case up with Donald Trump's immunity from persecution after leaving the White House, that's going to clear up some things, and there's probably going to be a constitutional amendment where a Democrat or a Republican can't go after a former opponent or someone on the other side during an election year, just to keep things safe, because this will probably not happen again in the future because Republicans have fair game now.
All right. Listen, I want to take the last few minutes we have of the program to replay the comments, because Marsha Blackburn was on fire a few moments ago when she called in. Here is the senior senator for the state of Tennessee reacting to the verdict just a short while ago here on Super Talk.
I was in the middle of one of my county meetings when the verdict came in, and someone said, "This is just crossing the wire." Everybody in that room they were just appalled with this, that there would be a guilty verdict on 34 counts. They know that this is a sham trial. They know that this is a judge who had decided he was going to find him guilty. They know that this is a DA that campaigned on saying, "I'm going to get President Donald Trump." People are fed up with this. This is the weaponization of our judicial system. They are sick and tired of two tiers of justice. This is one of the reasons that Donald Trump is going to be elected president on November 5th. And you'll see us take the U.S. Senate. We'll keep the House. We'll keep the supermajorities in our state House and state Senate in Tennessee. And I think that people are going to rise up like they have not in a long time, because they know full well, if you can do this, if you can weaponize the government against a former president, if you can exercise two tiers of justice, and if you can do this to him, they certainly can and will do it to you.
The punishment phase of this trial is now scheduled to start on July 11th, which would be just 4 days from the kickoff of the GOP National Convention in Milwaukee. That seems to be suspiciously politically timed.
Of course, it's politically timed. The whole thing has been to keep him off the campaign trail. And what they're going to try to do is have him miss the convention. It is not going to work. if he has to come in by video, you're going to see people more energized than ever because they realize the serious nature of weaponizing the government against your political opponents. That is something that they do in third world countries. We do not do that in the United States of America. And I think I've talked to so many friends who are Democrats and independents. They didn't vote for Donald Trump. They had not planned to vote for Donald Trump. But because of the serious nature of abandoning the rule of law, the serious nature of abandoning equal justice under the law, they are voting for Donald Trump.
Your thoughts, what would you say to people? We've had a lot of callers call in here this evening, and we'll be taking more calls in the next hour. And there is a real anger among some of the people. I mean, real demonstrable anger. What would you say to those people who are experiencing that anger right now?
And you know what? The anger, that is what I saw in the county meeting that I was holding when the news came in. It was anger. And these are not political people in nature. It was people that are in government service that are leading county organizations. And it was an anger. And to these individuals, I say, channel that anger, channel that disgust. Be sure you're registered, your neighbors are registered. Be certain that they are planning to go and vote on November 5th. Be certain that they are paying attention to who is running for office. And, you know, I want them voting for me on November 5th because I'm going to be standing with President Trump. I'm going to be supporting President Trump. I am going to be supporting that America First agenda. And people need to realize this is serious. What they are, and you know, Brian, you were in D.C. and kind of saw this transition. During the Clinton administration, what did they start doing? They started having 2 tiers of justice, 2 tiers of access, and they would weaponize the government at times against political opponents. We saw more of it in the Obama years, and now it is like they are on steroids. They've become very bold, very brazen, and they are, you don't see Biden and Hunter being held accountable for going out here and making deals and the accusations that are against the Bidens and Biden Incorporated and the Biden crime family. But what you do see is scrutiny at a level like we have never seen before, an accusation at a level like we have never seen before against President Donald Trump. And the sin he committed was beating Hillary Clinton. Nobody was supposed to beat the grandmama. And she was supposed to be the big mama that was going to come in and she was going to save the Democrat Party. And it did not happen. People voted for President Donald Trump. And I think what you are seeing right now, there's going to be such a backlash to this. I believe in the goodness of the American people. I believe in the goodness of Tennesseans. And you know what? I think people have had it on this.
All right, Marsha Blackburn earlier this evening on Super Talk 99.7. Now, we will no doubt have continued coverage with Mark Levin this evening, who should be wound up pretty good, I would imagine. I'm going to be sure I stand by and listen to that. And, of course, Dan Manis will pick up this story in the morning on Nashville's Morning News. It is now 52 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock.
The Guaranteed Offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lock boxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.